While the frightened client is running out of shout, Gale enthusiastically tries to sell his sorcerer's sword, which causes only irritation and disappointment in the sea. When he jokes a damn sword in a joke, she repels him with anger, demanding that he sometimes knows the border between stupidity and madness. Mora quarrels Gale for opening his creepy bench, and even next to the merchants who sell breakfasts. He justifies quoting guild, and she is just sighing, doubting whether he is at all in demand. Gale naively interprets the terms, and the sea reminds that in a rural town it is necessary to adjust the goods to the needs of farmers. In an attempt to adjust, he begins to invent even creepy things, from damn amulets to horrible poisonous daggers. The sea does not stand, grabs it for the skin and pulls it away, until the crowd whispers with a reflection that even the thieves are disgusting to steal its products. Their dispute leads them to the guild, where the elf master listens to a conversation with a face full of hopelessness. Mora complains that Gale is a real catastrophe, and he calmly denies that they are not partners. Despite nothing, Gale hugs his new sword and complains that the Mora is not able to estimate 3 days of his grueling work. Guildmaster joins the guidelines, reminding Gale that it is worth thinking about other people's feelings. She asks who in the rural town may need all these ominous pieces, to which Gale genuinely proposes to use his cursed things as interior jewelry, forcing a guilder to barely restrain laughter. Guildmaster surprises even more when he hears where he placed his bench. Mora is angry, explained that selling damn things next to food is a guaranteed path to conflict. When a guilder with a smile assumes that they are a couple, both in unison explode the cry of objection. Asked how much he paid for the place, Gale is proud to answer. A whole golden coin. The sea is shocked, and Gale finally comes that he was simply cheated by merchants. He suddenly opens the truth. Farmers and his spooky products are not needed. In despair, he claims that local adventurers will be interested in, but it sounds like a full absurdity for the sea. Guildmaster gently says Gale is time to change the location, and he is more likely to be occupied. Both Mora and Guildmaster see a lie right away. They saw many empty areas on the way. Guildmaster explains that even at the edge of the city there is space for large guilds, and Mora begins to understand the scale of the situation. Smiling, he says it's time for a small excursion that will open their eyes. They arrive at the impressive guild of the blacksmith, and Gale is not understanding why they are here. The powerful roar of hammers inside testifies to the extraordinary activity and strength of blacksmiths. Naively hoping, Gale thinks that the purpose of the visit is to just find the best point for trade. Surrounded by busy craftsmen, he finally asks why they are not solving this issue in the Guild of Merchants. Guildmaster reveals that in this city the merchant is weak, and the real power belongs to the Kowal Guild. Mora instantly makes a puzzle, and Guildmaster appeals to Gale. It's time to introduce himself to the true masters of the city. Mora explains that the power of the Blacksmith's Guild is maintained on the supply of the city of the most important metal tools without which no farm does. Guildmaster asks whether Gale has grabbed the proper gift, but he is fully focused on looking for a better place for his bench. With a smile, he considers his perfect gift brilliant. A cursed necklace of the skull and a new spooky sword. Expanding the dark power of the sword, Gale is convinced that the head of the guild will be amazed by this masterpiece of horror. Mora instantly gives him a slap, finally understanding why Guildmaster insisted on ordinary gifts. She grabs gifts from his hands, ordering to be polite, but Gale is sure that his weapon will fascinate even blacksmiths. Guildmaster pushes a heavy curtain, preparing to show them the very heart of the guild, where a real job boils. They come into a huge smithy, where strokes of hammers are heard, and the heat and smell of hot metal hangs in the air. Dozens of blacksmiths work hard, form metal, check the drawings, fully immersed in their business. Mora complains about the heat, and Guildmaster explains that it is not just a guild, it is a complete smithy for real masters. Guildmaster proposes to declare himself loudly, and Gale joyfully agrees. The cry, in his opinion, is the best option. While the blacksmith is working nearby, Gilder cleanses his throat, and Mora and Gale are anxious about developments. It criticizes the timid attempt to attract attention and preparing to show how it is done. Her cry is spreading the smithy with a deafening hole, stunning Gale and the sea with its fierce volume. The strength of its landing cracks an anvil, and Gale from the sea in a panic rush to the side, saving themselves from debris. From the depth of the workshop comes an angry figure, demanding silence and complaining about another senseless fuss. The young woman with a sharp tongue quarrels with them for noise and directly calls idiots without holding back her annoyance. Amazed, Gale and Mora are fading. The head of the blacksmith's guild is a strict woman gnome. She turns to a guildmaster by name, mocking that she is faced with the most dark elf from the forests. While they are thrown by studs, Gale begins to doubt the plan, realizing that there is an ancient enmity between their races. The verbal duel between the elf and the Gannis is exacerbated until the latter translates to Gale. Without interfering with the dispute, He looks carefully in her hands and immediately notices the prints of a true master forging. Shirin is approaching it almost close, and the sea wary of the events. Gale and Siren's views occur. There is a silent understanding and respect between the two masters. Their handshake is short, strong, as a sign of recognizing each other with the true masters of their business. The elven gilder interrupts the moment, jokingly hint at too hot communication between them. The embarrassed Gale and Mora hurriedly deny everything, and Guildmaster with a smile goes to the case. She explains that Gale wants to open a bench, but Siren is only shaking, considering it a senseless request. Turning, she complains about the lack of materials, a real problem that absorbs her all the time. Although she acknowledges that the visit is formally correct, Shirin warns, opening a bench will cause a conflict with the merchant guild. The slurry explains that focusing on repairs, their guild gradually became the main force in the city. Unofficial, but indisputable. She warns Gale not to trust the elven gilder, sits down and officially asks his name, making it clear that it is time to go to business. Hearing the consent, the sea with relief is rejoicing, and the elfish does not lose the opportunity to insert a sarcastic replica. Shirin winks, warning that it is too early to celebrate as Gale and Mora are already clapping each other in their hands like winners. She clearly states, it is not a charity, but an agreement, so she wants to see from them a drop of sincerity. Mora removes a bottle of quality alcohol, the kind of gift that had to symbolize sincerity. And finally, Gale understands everything. While the sea transmits a bottle of Serini, Gale is nervously stretching with its gift, and it almost ends with a disaster. The sea in a panic slams it and pulls it back, begging not to give a damn sword, but he is convinced that the slurry will appreciate it. Sharina watches the chaos and dryly points out that Mora has a painful habit of beating its companions. Gale's knife is grieving. Siren is rapidly grabbing a sword right out of his hands, like a predator who found a rare prey. Lifting the blade high, she raises a question that hangs in the air. What is it for incredible weapons? While the sea and the Elfian are recovering from shock, Siren is enthusiastically looked at the sword and does not hide its surprise. Her piercing look of a real master recognizes, in front of her, not just a sword, but a work of high smithy magic. She announces that these weapons are far from ordinary. Its presence changes the atmosphere of the forge itself. The stunned Gale is kneeling. For the first time, someone really recognized his talent not by a muzzle, but by the creator. There is an instant connection between it and the grinding. They are delighted with the deadly beauty of this unique sword. Browned with emotions, Gale does not hold back tears. He finally met a related soul that understands his art. While he sobs with joy, the Elven Guildmaster watches their unexpected proximity with a barely hidden surprise. Mora and Siren exchange views that read a common understanding. The flexible is clearly enjoying the moment. The Elfian squeezes a confused sea, hints at her jealousy, and then cleanses his throat to capture the initiative again. She mockingly suggests the sea to wait outside if the air in the forge is too dusty for her. The inspired Gale turned to Siren. He knew that the real blacksmith would accurately appreciate the quality of his work. Shirin is carefully studying the blade and in amazement lists its magic, steel life, dark element, origin from the monster. It easily waves with the sword and accurately determines the spell of weight relief, and Gale mysteriously hints, this is not all secrets. The Mora with anxiety watches it, but they are explained. Every real master must feel the weapon on his own. Smiling, Shireen confesses that she just could not refrain from a few attempts before such perfection. It describes the sword's ability to absorb the enemy's vitality and turn it into endurance. Weapons are perfectly balanced, easy enough to be used even with one hand. Siren states, it is the perfect weapon for single, capable of withstanding continuous battle until the last breath. Gale is proud to add, it is also dusty, has magical protection, and most importantly, it looks just chic and cursed. While Shirin praises the sword, Gale grabs her by her shoulder and persistently asks what his chip she had had time to mark the ladder. Mora will boil it for this terrible taste, but Gale is adamant. The main thing for him is that weapons look cool. Suddenly, the curse is activated. Dark tentacles are pulled out of the sword and the screening is twisted. She tries to escape with horror, at the same time screaming at Gale, indignantly criticized his horrible sense of style. While the sea is in a panic, Siren refuses all praise. Now she is genuinely afraid of this damned work. The Elven Guildmaster laughs, noting that, nevertheless, Siren has time to appreciate some of the effects of the sword. When Gale scatters the curse, it is doubted. Will it once perceive his strange abilities at all? The Elfian only shakes her head, having fun with the chaotic debut of Gale in the forge. He tries to turn the sword, but Siren is removed with horror, as if she saw a demon. Extended and exhausted, she sits at the table and sighs. Everything that has happened is a real disaster. Feeling disgust, she feverishly disinfects her hand, trying to erase the touch of the curse. She angrily reads a lecture by Gale for the lack of warning, and he only carelessly says that she is able to remove the curse. The Elfian tries to calm the situation, but Siren complains. Gale and his chaos are simply unbearable. She regrets that she has been tempted and fascinated by the sword, categorically refusing permission to the bench. Shirin is terrible. If it were not for their kindness, she would have called the guard to withdraw them from the guild. Mora turns the soul, explaining the foundations of the client service, and Siren swears, which will not allow him to trade in the city. In her imagination, she already sees the streets filled with horrible artifacts. The city is absorbed by the creepy madness, but something changes in it. Siren decides that he cannot allow such a shark to walk in the city without control. Mora pushes his elbow, and Gale confirms with a smug smile, he will not give up the dream of a bench. Mora is hot for him, and Gale with humility bows before Serena, begging to give him a chance. Seeing his despair, Shirin agrees to think about it, but doubts why he needs her help. She warns, her support imposes serious responsibility. Gale is accepting this condition without hesitation. With a cunning smile, Siren says that it is not enough promises. She intends to check his character. She hints at the request, and the worried C immediately suspects that the case will be in money. But Shirin is mysteriously inviting what task? The slurry could be entrusted to 2 adventurers. Finally, she opens the real price. She wants to send them for a hunting task to a single mine near Farmida. She warns, this mission is not simple. Everyone who went to the mine disappeared without a trace. It is not just a job, it is a dangerous task of Class AA concerning the Wolf Mine. With a call in the eyes, she officially offers them a quest, choosing them, to take the risk or retreat. The camera is slowly moving away, opening a view of the majestic city of Farmida, the arena of their next major test. In the capital, Princess Kara is stunned. The attack on her life was not a coincidence, but part of a much deeper conspiracy. Her guardian, with an alarming smile, confirms. Mercenaries confess that the Empire stands behind everything. He explains that the attempt is related to the struggle for the throne in a powerful empire that stands on the verge of change of power. The princess was stunned, having learned that the heir of the throne was hired. The advisor explains the political crisis. The emperor is seriously ill, and his 2 sons are struggle for power. The guard reminds the princess that her engagement with the second prince is a strategic union, which she has forgotten. She cleverly tries to reduce the value of the engagement, the even more annoyed by the tired chamber. He is strictly reminiscent of the Union of States, and her personal feelings are not important in the Game of Thrones. The guard concludes, the attackers are the allies of the heir who tried to disrupt the strengthening of the second prince. Looking out the window, the princess realizes that her marriage is a political threat to the ambitions of the heir to the throne. The advisor adds that the heir is even happy with the diplomatic scandal because it will increase his influence. The guard predicts that the second prince will arrive in order to settle the situation and strengthen his position. She warns that a new attempt is possible. There is no evidence against the heir, and therefore, the risk has not disappeared. The chamber confirms. Without evidence, their kingdom cannot act. War is impossible for them now. Improved with powerlessness, the princess beats the table with power. Anger and despair overflow. He boldly announces that he breaks the engagement and is not going to become part of imperial intrigues. She and the guard are exchanging the look. They both understand how serious her choice is. The security guard sighs hard, looking at the Princess Herses, and hides under the bed, avoiding responsibilities. There she squeezes the cursed ring and murmurs that she does not need another. The only one she wants. The scene changes. Gale and Mora come to the eerie entrance to the Wolf's Wolf Mine. The elf ditch with a smile excludes itself from the adventure, and Gale and Mora are presented as a magician of support and the master curse. Siren explains that there are no other parties, which is why this dangerous task has become a forgotten cold quest. She acknowledges that the mission should be lower, but now it all depends on them. They are already here. The Elfian will tease Siren, which hotly denies that she has made the quest too difficult intentionally. Mora finally understands. The task has increased to the rank of AA simply because no one could pass it. When the Elfish jokes that it can get to S-rank, Gale is interested what if they fail too. The tone of the Elfie is serious. Many adventure seekers have just disappeared. Gale points to a strange icy partition when entering the mine, suspecting that it is the cause of problems. Mora tries to write down spooky sounds in the wind, but Gale is sure that powerful monsters are hiding in the darkness. When both shudder at fear, the Elfian only sighs. They have not even come but are shaking. Shirin insists on accepting the task, explaining that her guild depends critically on the resources of this mine. Gale is doubting the safety of the mission, and Mora is amazed at a huge reward for such a deadly work. She refuses to go without a real fighter on the front line. Now it is clear why no local adventurer is at risk. Siren is ridiculed on their doubts, but even Gale recognizes. He is scared to fight with an unknown threat. With a confident smile, Siren herself is recorded in the front lines, raising her giant hammer. Gilder's proposal is shocking Gale and C, and the Elfian only smiles cunningly. She knows something. Both are viewed. It is unusual that the client himself goes to battle. It even worries Gale. The Elfian has fun reassures. The rules of the guild are not written that it is forbidden. Shireen strain the impressive muscles, demonstrating the skeptical C that it is not just chatting. Despite all the confidence of the Gynote, the C cannot accept the idea that the guildmaster is their tank. The Elfian watches their departure, noting the party's imbalance, but also noticing the potential in it. Mora confesses to himself, perhaps with Gaily amazing curses in them and there is really a chance. The new team is going with forces. They want to go through this task for Gale to finally open their bench. Sinking into the darkness of the mine, they hear behind the cheerful farewell cry of the elven guilder. Inside there is a huge mine with deep failure, shaky wooden platforms, and a hand lift. The strange sound makes the sea shudder, but Siren with a smile says it's just her backyard. She explains that howling is a wind that runs through the ventilation openings. It is from here, the name of the mine. To demonstrate the value of the mine, it is easy to throw a piece of iron ore. It points to the walls. There is a full lead here, and there is even a rare and valuable mithril. Shirin proudly shows the surrounding space, inviting the extent of its pride. This mine. The party lifts his views on the walls inlaid with crystals, enthusiastically staring at the beauty of the mine. Shirin is proud to open. It is this rich in minerals that is the reason why her guild appeared in Farm Aid. She asks them to relax and respect the place that has personal weight for her. Mora finally understands it. The sea comes on something, but with relief sighs. If there is no undead, nothing to be afraid. The relief disappears immediately. It returns and sees a terrible creature without eyes. She points to the monster in a panic, but neither Siren nor Gale see anything and look at her in surprise. And when the figure spoke, Gale jumped. A rare type of undead. Mora in shock from his enthusiasm. But it turns out that it is only a statue, and the monster himself comments on how much he was carved out of stone. Gale and Siren are passionate about the skill of carving, and the sea only sighs hard on two craft fanatics. Finally tired of their childhood grips, Mora decides to go forward and gently approach the wooden door. Mora tries to stop them, but Gale and Siren are completely passionate about carving, not noticing her word. Angry, she is lacking both of them, and exclaims that now is not the time for the Nardsky delight, pulling them forward. The door opens a giant cave filled with a stone army. The immovable figures of adventurers are in full silence. All the statues were frozen in the poses of shock and horror, as if the last moment of their lives was packed into a stone. The sea feels that things are bad, and Gale notes that each statue is unique, with stunning detail. Shireen's face darkens. It recognizes one of the sophisticated, and it makes her stop in silent shock. Gale asks how she can know the model, but Guildmaster is sure. It's not a sculpture. It points to familiar faces, one by one calling the missing fans of Farmeda adventures. When a piece of stone falls, everyone is pierced by a terrible thought. These are not statues. These are real people. They die, realizing the terrible truth. In front of them all, the adventurers who have disappeared in the mine turned into a stone. Mora is amazed, finally realizing why these statues look so painfully realistic. She, in a panic, asks how all these people could turn into a stone, as if at the same time. Gale grabs her by her shoulders and screams. It is a matter of an incredibly dangerous monster. Everyone begins to look with anxiety. The curse of the mine becomes not a theory for them, but a creepy reality. Siren collects a detachment and warns to be as careful as possible. The fight is already close. The frightened but decisive C voluntarily undertakes to explore the exit, looking into the dark passage. She takes command of herself, commanding Gael and Shirin to cover the front and flanks. Gale suggests that all the responsible high-level monster is perhaps a basilisk or gorgon. Making all the tips, smell, large feathers, extortions, it comes to a single conclusion. A giant creature with the body of the bird and the tail of the snake. Before them is a cockatrice, the horror of their anticipation. The earth shudders. Something heavy moves in the depths of the mine, moving stones from the rocks. The cockatry breaks the wall with explosive force, completely jumping the sea by surprise. Gale instantly defines the enemy. A monster of the catastrophe class, with arsenal of deadly attacks and thoughtful tactics. He screams the sea and the next moment changes with her, becoming between her and a monster. When the monster lifts a shrill cry, Gale, with determination in his eyes, rushes forward. The master curses, prepares the counterattack without bringing his eyes from the enemy silhouette. It breaks into the air and accurately stifles the cursed arrow directly into the snake tail of the cockatrice. A confident smile appears on Gale's face. The monster's attack made it a light target. Mora and Shirin are shocked. How did this tiny arrow break through the skin, and why didn't paralysis act? Gale screams. The arrow was fascinated by punching and shock. This is their chance. He commands the rinces to attack immediately. Knowing that the stunning effect will not last long, Siren is instantly rushed to complete the attack. It spins its giant hammer with frantic force, preparing to strike a devastating blow. After flying into the air, she releases a flurry of fast blows straight into the head of the monster. Landing with confidence, Siren brags his air combo while the sea and Gale look at her with delight. Suddenly, the tail zone attacks from below, and Mora instantly imposes intensifying magic on Siren. The Guildmaster feels the body filled with power. The muscles are pulled from magical power. Mora warns that its muscle enhancement is powerful but very short-term. Despite the caveat, Siren uses a new force and catches the monster's jaw simply in flight. With the sight of unwavering determination, she struggles, squeezing his mouth with his bare hands. Owned to show what the first-class blacksmith is capable of, she tears the beast's head into pieces. The tail of the cocoa-tree is faded as the Greerin land. Her body radiates a couple after superhuman effort. It falls around, tired, but with a victorious smile. A triumph, undoubtedly. Mora is relieved that they were lucky. The cockatrice was slowed down by a damnable gale. She turns to him sharply, demanding explanations. How did this little arrow punch the boss armor? Gale is genuinely surprised. It is normal for him that one-time debuff works even on such strong creatures. He explains. He simply reinforced the dart of the mascot made from the ashes of the ghost found in the capital. Mora and Shirin in full shock. How can a ghost have the ability to punch armor? Gale tries to remember the details and describes the skeleton in a black cloak. Suddenly he recalls a spooky lantern. The sea asks whether the creature has also had a braid. When Gale describes a giant skeleton passing through the walls, both shout, "He fought with a tin!" They are covered by panic, because the Reaper of the catastrophic class is considered a half-life. And did he really fought with him? Gale carelessly replies that he was only scared when he came out just through the wall of the cellar. The angry sea grabs him and shakes, demanding explanations how he generally managed to attract such a creature. Smiling fun, he confesses he just scattered Demibog and melted his essence into the cursed gear. Finally, Mora and Shirin are aware that if weapons are made from a deity level, it will really break any boss. Gale teaches a trembling Shire, quoting the credo of adventurers, 1 second of care can cost life. The sea stands in defense of the guinea. Anyone would be frightened after such a dangerous fight. The group finally returns to the fallen cockatrice, making sure that the threat is eliminated. They begin to be aware of the scale of what they have done. The feat was far from ordinary. The Trinity exchanges a victorious smile. The mission of the rank AA is completed, and the mine is under control. The victorious Trinity joyfully flies into the air. Their dangerous quest is finally completed with a triumph. While Gale is plucked by the feathers from the defeated monster, he asks Siren whether the mine is again suitable for use. He thinks about his new status, from curse to hero. This victory finally gave him a sense of true achievement. Mora looked carefully at the monster's crest as proof of their triumph, but then with a spooky curiosity asks whether something can be eaten. Outraged Siren immediately rejects this idea. The body of the cockatrice is completely impregnated with poison. But Gale, unmoved, compares it to the chicken, which causes the seas to be an unexpected desire to try a piece. The team thinks, why did such a great creature settle in relatively narrow shafts of the mine? Gale sniffs and disgust reveals a familiar smell. Rotten eggs and chicken. Confirmation of the presence of the nest. Mora comes on something fragile. The crack makes everyone alert. By kneeling, Gale finds a broken shell of a giant egg, which further confuses their mission. Mora notes that the shell is too large, and Gale is thoughtful to cover his mouth without lightening his eyes from the debris. Gale does not understand why chickens are needed at all, which is surprised by others. Mora patiently explains, chickens lay eggs, and Siren suddenly understands the terrible truth. Panic covers both women. They are aware of the horrific meaning of the find. The egg looks out from the egg, and slightly in the face of the frightened Grilled. The earth splits. Dozens of cubs emerge from the eggs, filling the cave. The detachment is surrounded by a hungry brood, realizing that they got directly into the nest. While everyone is screaming about the escape, Gale remembers. The chicks are imprinting to the first object they will be seen. The brood begins to scream in unison. Their tiny beaks are wide open, as if they demand food. With a cunning smile, Gale breaks the cloak from the sea. He has a brilliant, and at the same time a terrible idea. While the girls run in panic, Gale thinks that the chicks are not so scary, but the sea is sure. These creatures want blood. The whole team rushes the mine, trying to break away from a frantic flock of hungry monsters. The escape stops near the massive metal gate, a dead end that cuts through the path back. Siren takes the initiative, orders to cover it while she is preparing to break through a new passage. The horde of small monsters is rapidly approaching. Open beaks are flashing in the dark, ready to attack. Using one of the chicks as a springboard, Siren flies into the air, preparing his hammer for a powerful blow. She collapses it with a roar, confidently stating that it will break any barrier. While the Shire is working, the sea notices. The chicks are completely ignored. The problem becomes even more serious. Comparing the size, they are shocked. Even a baby cockatrice is higher than a person, and more than 100 here. The team assumes the guilty, probably the snake part of the body of the creature. It can cause excessive reproduction. Mora understands that these hungry chicks are so meaningless that they do not intimidate them, unlike a strategic mother. Shirin is a few monsters, but quickly find out they do not have the instinct for self-preservation. While the thieves are keeping the pressure on the last forces, the sea begins to draw a complex magical circle on the floor. It activates a powerful spell, wrapping the gun with a whirlwind of magical energy. Mora explains, buff will increase over time, but it is worried that the strength is not growing quickly. Having gained strength and speed, Siren flies into the air to test a new power. Thanks to the magic of the sea, it turns into a deadly whirlwind that cracks everything in its path. But even with improved parameters, the infinite number of chicks begins to press on it. Having been surrounded on all sides, Siren recognizes that she has almost no strength or mind. In despair of Mora, he turns to the exhausted Gale. Does he have a curse? How once against the orcs? But he explains. His curse on the basis of the spirit does not act on moist creatures, and all stocks are exhausted. He compares his curse with a lemon, which causes a reaction only to the one who understands that it is a lemon. Gale adds that his spell is only working when the enemy is able to realize the threat. Mora is horrified. This time, Gale's corporate curse is absolutely useless. The horde squeals even louder, starting a new phase of their terrible battle for survival. Pressing the gate, the tired Siren shrugs his teeth. Their position is critical. Mora asks as Gale can curse himself in some way to change the situation. Breaking in the bag, he remembers. He has several decorative things that he was going to sell. The first variant is a torn bandana covered with a strange substance. The second thing is even more creepy, a mask of a plague doctor which radiates dark energy. And the third is a set of horns called Horns of Suffering, with a sinister aura. Gale proudly speaks of their design, but adds that they are mostly decorative, and it reaches girls. But when it lists the effects, triple protection, double agility, and poisonous resistance, Siren and Sea fade in amazement. Realizing that this is their last chance, Mora is preparing a barrier, and Siren is to wear equipment. The exhausted Siren grabs Gale for the collar, demanding the equipment until he tries to diminish its efficiency. She repels the bandana with disgust. It is slippery and terrible to the touch, but there is no choice. Gale ties the damdana dam on her forehead, explaining. She gives a powerful protection and resistance to Fatum. Shiren is shocked. All its exhaustion disappears. The body is filled with a dark force that rises around it like an aura. Gale then conveys a mask of a plague doctor. It provides immunity to the poison and gives a night vision. Dressing her, Shiren sees with horror dozens of chicks that are drained from the depths of the mine. The sea grabs the head. It is even worse than they thought. The barrier of the sea begins to crack under the pressure of the pack, and it is shouted to give the last part of the equipment from Gale. He solemnly demonstrates the final artifact, the Horns of Suffering that double the agility and increase the strength of the hands. Completely equipped, Siren stands as a reborn, a powerful, ominous energy around her. While Siren is surprised by the unrealistic growth of power, the sea is silent with disgust, and Gale is proud to admire his creation. Dark energy pulsates in the palms of the Siren. Its body is permeated by an unrestrained magical force that fills each muscle. Ideal in time, the barrier flies into the piles. A horde of chicks breaks through a break. The sea screams a warning, but the reinforced Shiren stands unwavering in the midst of the invasion, like a dark fortress. Due to the dark lenses of the mask, her eyes shine with focus. She is ready to show all the power of the damned kit. It encroaches. Her hammer turns into a blurred arc, which carries a tremendous power. It creates a shockwave that cracks the walls of the cave. Mora understands that her buffs are no longer needed. It is passionate about with new force. Shiren does not believe in her own invulnerability. Her laughter is heard from under the mask. It produces a flurry of blows, instinctively inventing a new devastating combat equipment directly during the battle. Both Siren and Mora, explode with wild laughter, absorbed by the frantic energy of the battle. Mora suspects that the equipment affects the mind of Siren, and Gale assumes is a powerful combined effect. He explains that if the damnable objects are compatible, their properties are reinforced repeatedly. Mora understands. The time is not just a buff, but a true state of magical euphoria. Drawing the last blow, Siren finally destroys the last chick, spraying it on dust. The battle is completed. Siren is faded in silence. The curse manic energy begins to fade. The dark substance begins to drain from the equipment, going to the puddle on the cave floor. Having removed things, Gale scatters residual magic, causing a lightweight sigh in the seas and shirts. Lying on the ground, Shirin was assured that she praised only the functionality of the equipment, not the curse. She tries to prove that things are of higher value now, but Gale sees only faded fabrics and scratched horns. The thunder eventually falls, the body no longer withstand the load, and Gale says that the curse has only delayed fatigue. He explains in detail. Now her body pays the price for all the inhuman power she had just used. Mora soothes Siren, acknowledging that only the most bold or the most conscious adventurers rely on cursed equipment. Looking at the mountain of the defeated monsters, Gale realizes that his creations have a terrible power and tremendous price. But suddenly, a sinister crack comes from one of the chicks. Probably not the end of their adventures. Completely exhausted, Siren was leaking on the floor, even finger to move. Mora jokingly teases the thunderbolt, and just sighs. Now she is even shaking her strength. The whole team sits in silent exhaustion, understanding that today each of them has exhausted all its boundaries. In spite of fatigue, Shirin states with confidence, this time the danger has really passed. Gale and Mora are relieved of victory, believing that the dangerous AA rank quest is finally completed. The bleeding but happy Trinity officially announces the Wolf's wolf mind safe. They laugh, confessing that they would never have taken this task, knowing all the depth of danger. But Gale's joy breaks off. Anxious thought suddenly flashes in his head. The phrase of the cockatrice's nest is heard in his mind, opening a terrible new assumption. The look of all rises to the wall of giant eggs, and the sea becomes creepy cold. The heavy step shakes the cave again. It was the feeling that she had when she first saw the shell. A giant bird creature emerges from the nest, much larger than everyone they saw. The real nest queen hangs over them, and it becomes clear. They have cleaned the child, not the main threat. From the impact of the air, the whole team flies. The first monster was a chicken, and in front of them an angry cock. Siren points to its size, and Gale is aware of horror. They fought with a couple all the time. Exhausted, they try to evade devastating attacks. The third, even deadly round begins. The angry monster throws the shirt sideways, but Gale catches her and tries to bring her senses. The sea breaks into a cry. The monster does not regret them only because they are tired. The rage of creatures reached the boundaries. She returned with prey, and found a destroyed nest and dead descendants. The monster lifts a shrill roar, pouring his sorrow and anger in preparing for revenge. Shirin is challenging and challenging. This mine belongs to her guild, not a creature like him. The angry cockatrice replies, releasing a cloud of fossil fog directly in their direction. The sea screams a warning, and Gale covers a terrible anticipation. Something in this attack is not so. He calls Siren, but it stands stubbornly. Gale rushes to her, knocking to the ground just before the fog explosion. Shirin is stunningly looking at him as he confirms the worst thing. This thing is deadly. He shows a dead chick. It immediately turns into a stone, touching the poisonous cloud. Everyone is observing horror. Everything that the fog touches turns into a solid stone, even the walls of the mine. The cockatrice inflates the breasts, preparing to release another wave of deadly breathing. When the second wave rises into the air, the sea fades with fear. The body is not obeyed, it is stabbed. She quickly analyzes the attack, a small radius, a long pause between the volleys, but there is nowhere to run. Even understanding the weaknesses of technology, she realizes they are trapped. There is no exit from the cave. Realizing that they are driven, she forces herself to think. She must find a decision while Gale and Shirin hold back the monster. All hope is now on the sea. Her mind, their last weapon against a creature that destroyed everything she touched. Gale and Siren are sharply turning, rushing back to the sea, and an angry monster chases them on the heels. Mora screams with horror. Her friends directly lead the creature of the catastrophic class just to her. The whole group is driven into a corner. They are married like a defenseless flock, and there was almost no chance of escape. With deafening hissing, the cockatrice beats the ground, releasing a devastating wave of strength. From the impact, the earth cracks, fragments and dust rise into the air, and the whole team flies in different directions. Gale helps the stunned sea, and the monster again erupts a low, terrible growl. Mora quickly evaluates the situation. The hammer is lost. The shelter is not left at all. When hope is almost fading, Gale calmly says that he has a shield for them. Shirin is surprised to look around. What does he mean when the monster stands just above them? With the gloomy determination of Shirin goes forward in arms, decide to become a live shield for friends. She orders them to hide behind her. I am sure that she will still be able to restrain the attack for a short time. The stunned Gale denies, reminiscent of his own promise. He had to be their front. When the fog wraps her, Sharina only says that now she has already fulfilled her responsibility. Everyone fades in horror, looking at her body begins to crack and slowly stones. In her last moments, she confesses. Despite all his amazing, Gale really liked it. The crying sea begs to keep, but Sharina thinks only one thing, to survive friends. She is completely fossilized. She stands stationary as a monument to the last victim for his comrades. Her thoughts are pouring into her native guild. She leaves her to care for those whom she trusts. Even the Elfine remembers. He regrets that she has not admitted, as she respected her at heart. Suddenly, the outbreak of dispelling magic shines through the cave. The fossilized body of Siren begins to come to life. Gale tilts to a stunned Gynote. Her hand hangs freely. She slowly comes to her senses. He explains to shocked friends. When he touched it during a fossil, intuition suggested that he could remove the curse. And his risk came true. Mora and Shira are in full shock from his mysterious ability. Mora finally understands. The breathing of the monster is not poisonous. It is a curse of a fancy, similar to Gorgon magic. Gale adds satisfied. His skills of removal will curse effective not only against demons and undead. Siren points to the cockatrice. He begins to shake, apparently weakened after the last occasion. The monster barely holds on his feet. His comb is faded. His breath is difficult. The attack depleted him. Now that his main weapon is neutralized, Mora sees a chance on a counterattack. Gale urges to act. Mora collects the remnants of strength to impose the last buff. And the Siren gets up again, ready for a decisive blow. Mora teaches a new plan. Gale has to distract the snaketail as it pumps a shirt with force for the final blow. Mora screams to Gale, "Activate the curse!" And at the same time, with the grinding, he rushes to the attack. The snaketail of the monster erupts forward with a sinister hiss, preparing to strike a devastating blow. Increased by the charms of the sea, Shirin is intercepting the tail and burning it into the ground with a deafening blow. While Gale is flying to the stunned tail, the Mora smiles happy. The tweezers have succeeded. Siren gives a signal. It's time to put all the cards. Gale rushes the monster's back just to his head. The curse with a frantic speed rises the body of the monster, approaching the target. When the cockatrice turns his head, Gale looks directly into the eyes of the monster. It's time to start the final assault. He activates everything he has. A full arsenal curses explodes in one powerful splash of energy. With the wild Oscar, Gale launches the attack closely, pouring a monster of a storm of cursed magic. The cockatrice recedes, howls the pain. The curse explodes, and Gale flies from the strength of his own volley. Lying on the ground, he mockingly teasing the monster. The whole combat arsenal was delivered for its intended purpose. The creature hides under the whole mountain cursed. Ominous skulls and dark entities fly around. The number of curses impresses. Damnable objects, ghosts and horrible phantoms fill the space around the beast. When Gale lands, the stunned sea asks if he really used everything. He just nods. He confesses. He launched everything he had, in the style of washing, just hoping that something exactly was happening. The ghost horde begins to glow. Energy becomes unstable, hinting at the catastrophic ending. The sea in a panic will make it in words. If it explodes, we will just take us all. But Gale only laughs. She acknowledges. She wanted to be full, but did not think that it would mean a full magical apocalypse. In the air, a dark magical node is formed. The nucleus is cursed, ready to destroy everything around. The curse explodes simultaneously, destroying the cockatrice in an epic magic outbreak. The shockwave scatters all the participants of the battle. The sea is screaming, accusing Gale of crazy carelessness. When dust settles, only a dark, steaming puddle remains from the former monster. Shiren and Sea slowly stand up, dirty and tired, but alive. And this is the main thing. The sea is becoming awake of the destroyed cloak until it noticed the unconscious Gale among the debris. Their short relief interrupts a terrible tremor. The whole cave begins to collapse. They exchange frightened views. This mine will no longer stand. Gale comes to mind from a strong concussion, clicks, trying to understand what is happening. Panic understanding that the collapse begins, he again falls into hysteria. But the girls quickly put him in place. Not time for disputes, the team rushes to the exit hoping to have time to escape from the ruins. Giant fragments of stone and stalactites fall from the ceiling, threatening to instantly crush anyone who does not have time. The scene alternates between the desperate escape of the team and the surprise chamber of the princess whose face is full of horror. The mine tunnel is insanely shuddering and pouring around the fugitives, threatening to bury them alive. The loud roar in the entrance to the Dogcall mine is finally falling under a pile of stones. Having got miraculously, Gale and Mora are lost to the ground, alive, and this is a victory. But they do not have time to relax. The angry Serena beats them both on the head. The Guilder's Carlish shouts, accusing that instead of destroying the monsters, they blew up the whole mountain. Gale is timidly denied. The technical task is completed. The mine is cleared, although completely destroyed. The sea has fun, the monsters are destroyed, so pay us a reward, as they agreed. Shiren is breaking. Now they need to compensate for her all the damage, not the other way around. Gale tries to justify himself, reminding of the risks he went to and the promised trading. Shireen fiercely asks how she will now present it to merchants if he has become a symbol of the destruction of the mine. She grabs her head, she has a hammer, the mine is destroyed, and it is still cursed by armor. Standing among the ruins, she loudly announces this day the most horrible in life. Unlike her friends, who is indifferent. Meanwhile, in the capital, the princess chamber is grabbing for a pillar while training. It looks completely exhausted. He coughs, acknowledging that he was convinced of his own death, and remembers Gale's strength as something unspeakable. Elsewhere, the Hildmaster elf sighs with relief, realizing that she is not even resisted against his strength. She decides that she has seen as a sufficient reason to consider the debt to Gale fully paid, and immediately goes. Gale has a moment of insight. Although he creates only damn things, they all have the power of real artifacts. The trio is silently standing. Siren is angry, the sea is exhausted, and Gale is calmly conceived. After a while, the camera protrudes in front of the group near the cleared entrance to the mine. A new section begins. It uses a powerful dispersing, breaking the stone curse from one of the muddy adventurers. The liberated seeker with emotions hugs his excited Penelope. Guildmaster Elf jokes on a couple, and Mora decides to save the rest of the fossilized seekers. The grateful man confesses. He promised to marry Penelope if he survives and thanks the team for salvation. Seeing a chance, Gale gives him a damn pocket watch as a wedding gift. Friends will quarrel with him for an untimely gift, but Gale immediately begins to advertise his future store. The happy couple hugs without noticing the ominous aura that begins to ooze with a clock. The scene fades, leaving only a spooky image of a plague doctor. In the city of bell rings, bells are heard. A new section of their chaotic history begins. The cheerful mood of the guildmaster changes instantly when she sees extremely evil in the door. Siren sits for a bar, noting dryly in the guild. The elf Hosey is immediately interested in whether she came to look for a fight. The gilding dwarf puts on a single unimaginable dart, which looks quite commonplace. The Elfian is surprised to ask why she is this little one, but Shireen just advises to look more closely. After wearing a monocloth, the Elfian fades. Her face changes from indifference to full shock, which is clearly satisfied. Sharina explains, "This dart is a real artifact, and Gale sells things unprecedented without unnecessary thought." The Elfian recalls that she has heard about him as an ordinary traveler, but Siren denies. He is rumored that he was in a S-level party. Two guilds exchange views. One smug, the other is tired, thinking about who this creator really curses. Shirin is laughing at the idea that such a mighty adventure seeker just went into their cozy town. She changes the topic and reports that all fossilized seekers from the mine were completely recovered. The Elfian is amazed. Gale managed to remove the curse, which even the strongest priests could not cope. Siren adds that she was fossilized, but Gale brought her back to life. She notes that although many rescued, several have not stood the trials and died. Those who survived after removing the curse are now being restored in a single church hospital of the town. The local church is anxious. They cannot understand how he managed to perform such powerful miracles. The intrigued Elfian begins to ask Siren about Gale's abilities to dispel. The Horal dwarf leans forward and asks, is the Elfian really interested in his strange forces? Siren tells how Gale just called a fossil the curse, and immediately removed him from all. And he did it without any medication or saints of artifacts, leaving everyone in a full surprise. The Elfian laughs. After all heard, no one will believe that he is an ordinary traveler. Having realized his strength, she decides to apply for raising his rank in the guild. Guilders joke with each other, recognizing their long-standing dispute. But the Elfian quickly moves to the business. Why is Shirini suddenly so interested in Gale? But she swayed. She has already recruited him to guild for blacksmithing, despite his dubious fashion. The Elfish reconciles. Double membership is allowed, albeit with some annoyance. Shirin is smartly enjoying the victory, and the Elfian is in vain tries to hide her annoyance. Having completed the conversation, Shireen without unnecessary ceremonies issues an Elfian from the guild. Meanwhile, Gale is sneezing in the Gale mine, not understanding why. Mora immediately stews him for his disobedience, but he is justified. It is all dust in the air. While they are clearing the blockage, the sea notes that Siren is a strict but demanding boss. She jokingly pinches Gale for the cheek, calling him the culprit of the collapse through his crazy witchcraft. Mora, by the way, asks Gale. Or is it true that he joined the Blacksmith's Guild? He calmly confirms, showing a brand new token, which Siren handed him in exchange for help with the store. Mora is amazed. Kowal Guild is known for its closeness and masters of the highest level. Gale is indifferent to the duty question. He was simply allocated a place to create damn artifacts. The sea is moved, so they truly accepted it. But Gale only remembers how Shirin is constantly grunting on his products. He suspects that she wants decor, not weapons, so he focused on decorative things. It proudly demonstrates its last work, a bleached skull processed into a flower vase, causing horror in the sea. She does not understand why spending it all day, but Gale boasts how long he has polished him to perfect shine, and then he adds that the vase constantly restores Manu and accelerates healing. A dream for every magician. The sea is stunned, and Gale is shrugged. They say it's just a little rest, which only annoys it. She explains that mana recovery is a thin process that depends on the nutrition and sleep of the magician. Squeezing his fist, the girl understands that this damn vase completely offsets a complex and long process of regeneration. But it is the appearance of such a terrible thing that is horrified by it. It goes away, feeling immediately to the very design. In the end, the sea begins to understand Siren and its constant rage on Gale and its weird products. While the sea has cooled, Gale, with naive sincerity, tells the newly arrived Siren, which was upset by his creation. But it explodes. He shouts that instead of a useful tool, he creates a terrible junk, threatening to expel him from the city. Then from the scope, a huge wrapped roll, which reveals the head of the fallen cockatrice, throws at his feet. She specifies that he only dealt with the first monster, but the final boss killed it. Smiling, Siren is reminiscent of a surprised Gale that he is still guilty of her reward. The angry sea interferes, demanding to be gratitude, but Gale stands stubbornly at the promised shop. The sea does not stand, reminds that they are now busy with the restoration of the mine, which it has destroyed. She stops the dispute and addresses Gale. She has something really important as he is traded for a larger store. Mora leads it to a massive object covered with a cloth on the trolley. The true look is still hidden. With a theatrical gesture, it breaks the blanket, showing the body of a fossil cockatrice, a source of her deadly fog. She confirms that it is this part that creates a stone fog that they faced in the mine. Mora reminds that Gale once called the monster's power of the curse. He silently agrees. He recalls how cockatrice's breath was felt like a Gorgon curse, and it was confirmed when he removed him from the victims. Recognizing the value of the artifact, Mora gives the body to him, proposing to create something truly unique. She insists only he is able to reveal the damned power of this rare material. Gale, slightly tense, accepts a gift, but only one very important condition. Siren intervenes, catching a chance, states that this body is much more valuable than just a gift. With a cunning smile, she announces that it is time to hold a practical lesson in the economy. She enthusiastically explains the principle of supply and demand, leaving Gale in a state of complete surprise. History changes focus sharply. It becomes obvious that the effect of the curse of Gale goes far beyond the town of Farmag. Deep in the protected repositories of the Imperial Palace, someone responds with horror to an incredible find. The shocked Prince of Vario is reproaching the leaders of Assassin Lisnet, who confirms his worst suspicions. The prince grabs her for her chin and angrily accuses her of lies and deception about the situation in the repository. He screams, reminding her that he was Crown Prince, and as she could dare to betray him. Calling it with a ill, Vario pushes Lisnet to the ground. She has nothing to justify her defeat. The prince draws her behind her, fiercely remembering her promises and the failure of the elite assassins. In a panic, Lisnet finds herself in a dark room where her force is thrown by an angry prince. Before her is a lonely chest that radiates dark, ominous energy. The prince reveals it, the most damn artifact of the Empire, the heart of the demon. Lisnet shudders, catching a soft, deadly stench. Artifact contains the essence of the legendary king of demons. Vario ominously explains, this heart feeds on life, and today it will get a decent lunch. He pushes her into the chest and asks if she understands what she is waiting for her soon. When the energy of the artifact flashes, Lisnet in despair pleading for salvation. The prince mockingly says that this deadly room is the perfect place to meet while miasma sucks her will. He whispers that even one touch of the artifact would kill an ordinary warrior instantly. Lisnet sobs when her trembling hand is approaching the deadly heart of the demon. Finally, the prince pulls her back, pulling her hair, and she grabs the air, breathing. He squats in front of her and demands to explain every detail of her stunning failure. Lisnet says that everything went according to the plan, until the last critical moment. Vario shocked. All attempts attempted were in vain. The princess was not injured. In rage, he pushes the bucket, refusing to believe that such a weak goal could destroy his elite assassins. Suddenly he learns. A mysterious artifact gave the princess immunity to instant deaths and many more defense. Lisnet insists. Though it sounds incredibly, her report is a sincere truth. The memory confirms her words. All the assassins were destroyed. There is no other explanation. The prince begins to understand that the threat is much greater than he imagined. Enemies have a dangerous artifact. He understands one powerful artifact can change the balance of power around the world. Pat flowers on the temples of Prince Vario. The artifact of such force passed his spy network completely unnoticed. He fiercely stamped his foot, maliciously blaming the fate for the new threat at the worst. The secret fear of the prince becomes apparent. He cannot allow the erected brother to marry the princess and receive the strength of the artifact. The leader of the assassin interferes and reports key information about the mysterious origin of the artifact. She explains that by their intelligence, the source of artifacts is a young man trading from a simple tray in the bazaar. The memory confirms. It was Gale, an unobtrusive merchant, who handed over the princess's artifact. The scene is transferred to the tavern in the capital, where the drunken man is loudly surprised, as Gale has reached the distant pharmacy. His comrades try to make him silence. Such chats can attract unwanted attention. But he only waits, remembering the rumors of the driver about the strange way of traveling Gale. The drunken adventurer again says to the waitress, attracting even more outsiders. In the name of Kush, this adventurer requires L, but receives a slap from an irritated partner. Their group recalls rumors that the dive to Farmag was attacked by a huge horde of orcs. One of them claims that the horde has destroyed only one fighter, but the Kush mocks this fairy tale. His friend insists that he listens and he is surprised. How can the Erichard stop monsters? The story refers to a man with a cursed dagger, who himself destroyed the entire horde of orcs. Hidden under the hood, the adventurer understands that the description perfectly coincides with their acquaintance, Gale. Another companion does not believe. Even their experienced team would not be able to turn it. But a woman from their group says that he has a confirmation from an eyewitness, and it was definitely Gale. She confirms that she saw it behind the counter, and now the sober Bush demands to know where exactly. It turns out that he sold cursed items as a decor until the royal guard confiscated the product. The Kush is baptizing again. They say, he just sold a slag that no one needs. But the man in the hood denies. Gale was successful. He made enough to shoot a decent room. The other adds that he even bought himself new clothes and a ticket to the diligence. Not bad for the seller of junk. The woman reports the shocking news. Royal Warta is looking for Gale by feverishly, and he disappeared without a trace. Former comrades are aware. With such money, Gale is preparing something large-scale. The man in the hood begins to make a puzzle, preparing to lay out his theory with impatient friends. He suggests that Gale left the capital due to persecution and went to look for a new place to work. Everyone understands that with his enthusiasm, he is likely to try to open his own shop. The group is just sighing. Let their thought about his goods and was not the best, and he will have enough storage for the store. The woman confirms. Someone, like Gale, has indeed applied to the trading guild to the opening of a jamper. The informant confesses that he has violated the rules and pulled out information about Gale personally from the guilder. The hood man suggests that having money, Gale would definitely try to open his own curse shop. The sober Chush is sharply picked up, in a panic demanding to return its drink. Other visitors complain about slow service, and the group is eagerly waiting for their order. However, no one counts the price, because the princess pays for everything, so they are relaxed. The waitress confidently approaches the table, carrying 2 huge tubs with an element. She puts them on the table with a roar, pouring already so unhappy with her head to feet. Kush begins to complain about rudeness, but she calmly reminds it was the order he made. Its tone changes sharply. It invisibly returns the conversation to the main, how to find Gale. When the waitress goes away, colleagues praise her for brilliant work undercover. Liznit grunts because of his task to work as a waitress, though he understands, everything for the sake of gathering information. Watching the shadows, she confirms that Gale's former team is as unbearable as they were written in reports. One of her people is amazed. Princess Kara hired this gang, and they remember Gale and Farmag. Liznitz clarifies, a batch of rank S, a wolf pack, and they desperately search for someone named Gale Hamilton. Her subordinates are embarrassed. Why does the artifact master pursue a whole team of elite seekers? But it reveals the stunning truth. Gale himself was part of this party and disappeared, proving her trick. Liznit is annoying. He believes that rumors of his bad taste, only a cover for a true personality. However, she admits, it was worth listening to this loud company. Now they have a hook. She orders agents to follow the wolf pack and go out at the Gale immediately as they find it. Meanwhile, another princess agent grunts that through Gale her team is forced to work on pathetic work. Deep inside the guild of the blacksmiths, a loud clamp of hammers and sounds of hard work is heard. Moran passes stone corridors, moving these sounds to one of the workshops. She finds Gale and Grompton at work. They are completely absorbed by the process and do not notice it. When Gale takes a break, he decides to finally say Moran is somewhat important. He sincerely thanks her for the support of a dangerous task with smart dogs. Gale confesses that her presence was extremely sedative. Moran finds words from surprise. His sincere words are forcing a mighty magician to spare and take his look. She quickly recovers, shaking that as a top Megan of support. To help him was her responsibility. In response, Gale smiles happily and says that thanks to her support, his dream becomes a reality. It is at the moment when Moran thinks about his words, Gale is sneezing loudly, and everything is spoiled. The annoyed Moran is stealing Gale for the impolite sneezing, and in the meantime, he thinks whether he has become the object of gossip. When Sharon arrives, Moran squeezes. They say it is just an allergy to residual dust with consciousness. Galea thanks the Yard for the space in the workshop when she notices his just completed strange invention. It demonstrates a device similar to a horn built by its instructions, but doubts that it is too simple. Despite the doubt, the captured Charon grabs cumbersome plants and demands to explain how she works. It quickly finds the key to the side and activates the device that begins to buzz, radiating strange energy. Gale demonstrates its action. A ray breaks out of the device, which carries a curse of fossilization of coquetry. Sharina barely evades, screams madly at Gale, and he indifferently noticed that he could simply dispel the curse. The twofold reminds him of his lecture on the economy, explaining the true purpose of the device in the region without stone. Moran covers the illumination. This device creates a stone from nothing, an invaluable source of profit in the right place. It quickly draws a rough scheme about construction in the desert, and Gale does not understand what it all leads to. It begins to ask him about the possibility of construction, making bricks, digging, transportation of materials. Moran immediately rejects these options. Water requires water, and it is too difficult to dig in the sand. It demonstrates how impractical it all, and forces Gale to see all the logistics problems of construction in the desert. With the outbreak of determination in the eyes, Moran states that he has a decision that will change the rules of the game. It proposes to use the cursing of a fossil to turn dense sand into a stone. The idea is stunning both. Sharina finally realizes the genius of the design, and Moran explains that they can now create bricks right in place. Moran notes that although Gale has unique skills, he is completely lacking in strategic vision. She talks about chronic stone deficiency in Manga, and Gale is red from unexpected praise. Moran embraces a confused Gale and solemnly announces his invention will solve all the problems with the resources in the city. And Sharina already counts profits. If the device really works, Gale will become incredibly rich. Moran sighs, complaining about his social stupidity, and Sharina admits, though he is a fool, his talent is undeniable. Even the guilds of the courtyard confesses that she had previously despised damnable objects, but his work is really striking. Gale's discolored Gale disappears from shame, and Sharon specifies she praises only his objects, not himself. She asks if he can make another device from dead chicks, but Gale confesses that he has already tried and failed. Sharina sighs. The fancy organs are not formed in them, and the poison in the tail is not magical. Gale is doubting why the poison generator is needed, but Sharon is sharply reminiscent of them in the agricultural region. She explains, pests and wild beasts are a daily threat, and the poison will be useful for hunting and protection. With a sly smile, Sharon challenges. It is certain that he cannot cook poisons and proposes to teach it to his methods. The stunned Gale learns that she made poisonous mascots almost daily. It is a common thing to her. Sharina explains that her poisonous mascots need rare materials, stomachs of ghoul or mummies. Due to the lack of such components on sale, she confesses with a tricky smile, he just hunts for these monsters herself. Inspired by the words, Moran lights up and states that the ingredients are needed from his gilder. Gale's eyes shine. He generously proposes to buy everything she will find to create something new. It proudly demonstrates his first work. Perfumes from the intestine of ghoul, which shocks both girls. The angry Sharon's pelvic pelvis of papers, demanding that he keep her orders and does not invent nonsense. But Gale, tireless in his enthusiasm, immediately takes the case, and Sharon watches with him with interest. While he is mastering the fancy weapon, Moran decides to join the process and offer his help. Sharon with a smile will tease the salted Moran, clamping why she still hangs in the workshop. The twofold recalls that they have temporarily formed a team, and adds that her guildmaster is satisfied with their progress. Moran looks at Gale and thinks for the first time. Maybe that's where they will find their place. Meanwhile, the scene is transferred to the former Gale team, a wolf pack, which, to say the least, looks dissatisfied. Their caravan rakes on a dusty road, and a loud regatta comes from one cart. Inside the wolf, a flock celebrates a new equipment purchased at the expense of the princess. The leader sways with a mithril sword over 500 coins. Others demonstrate their updates, a magic book and bone blade. They are confident in their invincibility. They are disrespectfully mocking Gale, they say. Their old artifacts are nothing. Outside the cart, 2 irritation satellites listen to drunken fun. The party leader is surprised why no one wants to join their S-class team. The conclusion is obvious. Few people pull to their level. So Gale had to take from Moran, although other travelers whisper about their arrogance. The hood in the team only laughs quietly. as if the whole situation was entertaining him. Lise, with a group of assassins, successfully penetrated into the wolf pack, giving themselves for new supports with buffs and debuff. The leader confirms their role, adding that they also wear all the command of the team. He disrespectfully from their poverty, not suspecting how to crumble with a smile. He swear to take revenge on him for the boldness. The assassins have resigned themselves to humiliation, as this is the best way to follow the wolf pack and find their goal. The leader grossly distributes orders, preparing everyone for a long journey with banquets and drinks. The team triumphs, enjoying gorgeous supplies, all thanks to the generous funding of Princess Kara. One of the satellites warns the leader of the danger of drinking during the escort quest, and he neglects advice. The leader complains of the gloomy faces of assassin, demanding that they disappear from his field of view. While the flock is eating, the hungry assassins are missed through the empty wallets and the stinginess of the owners. But suddenly everything interrupts the shrill whistle. The team Lise is instantly straining, getting ready for a possible ambush. The leader of the wolf flock is loudly ordered, adventurers to protect the carts and the mercenaries to stand in a defensive line. A giant cloud of dust and roar rise from the forest. The huge army of the monster is approaching. The terrible horde of monsters breaks out of the trees, rapidly rushing directly to the caravan. The leader tries to encourage the fighters by swaying, and suddenly one monster crashes into a cart. Everything turns into chaos. The monster breaks through protection. The carts are folding and the guards are accelerated. Scout returns to the midst of the alarming news. He identified the leader of the monster. Their enemy is an armored giant, a behem, a monster of unheard-of power. The masked assassins understand horror. In front of them, a S-class monster who should not be here at all. The leader acknowledges that the horde consists of B-class animals, and there is almost no chance of direct clash. While the wolf flosses, without taking the threat seriously, the subordinate Lise offers to escape. The leader is wheezing, declaring, now is time either to run or fight. He knows that assassins need them. The angry Lysen curses his fate and orders the team to fight and be ready to retreat. Her subordinate is indignantly mentioned that the Empire was already giving a quest to destroy this horde, but everything went to a scrape. Another agent adds, the S-class team, which was instructed, simply cancelled participation and now everything has fallen on them. While the team considers the situation, everyone comes to the conclusion. A wolf pack, like a S-class, must cope with a hippo. With determination in the eyes, Liznet decides. She will force drunk adventurers to enter the battle. It breaks into the visa, trying to warn the fighters of danger, and their intoxicated situation only annoys it. The hop leader disrespectfully calls her a nest, and her own agents restrain his Lise so that she does not explode. Finally, other team members notice that the cart has stopped, and there is a suspicious noise from the outside. One of them lazily looks out, calls the driver, not even knowing what a threat nearby. Suddenly, a deafening roar is heard from the forest. A huge hippo demonstrates its spooky mouth. Understanding the scale of trouble, once arrogant adventurers panic, screaming with pure horror. Lisette realizes that this is the very monster that made the herbs an attack on the highway earlier. With calm gloom, he explains to the team that the creature is truly destructive. The hippo, a living embodiment of the catastrophe, its very presence inspires panic and destruction. Suddenly, the monster punches the head of the cart, and one of the adventurers flies away from the blow. Explosive force demolished the whole visa, throwing Lisette along with the wreckage into the air. It falls with irritation, watching the so-called elites instantly lose control of the situation. The armored head of the hippos crashes into the ground, demonstrating the unlimited strength of the element. Lise, with a bitter irony, casts a look at the S-class team, quarreling that even a regular ram could not stop. The hippo lifts the uncontrollable roar, releasing a shockwave that rocks the battlefield and makes everyone shudder. The wolf pack fades with fear, and Lisette notes that the roar of the monster seems so powerful that the air is cracking. Even the most experienced adventurers are shocked. A terrible combination of giant sizes and lightning speed. The angry Liznet reminds that it was this monster that they had to be hidden before the beginning. The leader laughs boldly, waving the threat of S-class as if it were a small obstacle. With a casual self-confidence, the whole pack pulls out weapons, stating that the hippom is not their problem. Seeing how the famous team is taken to battle, other fighters are again filled with hope. The crowd begins to chant the name of the wolf pack, excitedly waiting for the legendary battle. Lise and assassins watch them bathe in glory, not even realizing how serious everything is. While the hippo was rushing forward, the crowd kept breathing in anticipation of incredible confrontation. Lisette looks with delight, seeking to finally see the true power of the S-class party. But by one wave of the tail, the hippo scatters the whole wolf of a flock of a craft. The leader is stunned, and the lick and the crowd fade in full shock, not believing the eyes. The hobby is replaced by horror. It becomes obvious that the so-called heroes are completely powerless. While a pack in a panic runs away, Lizette instantly organizes his assassins, refusing to surrender. Her subordinate is amazed. How does the S-class team throws equipment and escapes from the battlefield? Lizette only laughs at their shameful escape while the leader of the pack laughs, justifying the defeat. She proudly states that her team, the elite assassins of the Empire, will cope with the situation. In a decisive voice, Lizette orders its agents to get their weapons and attack a horde of monsters. Assassins fearlessly rush into battle, ordering to destroy the monsters and protect the fugitives without revealing themselves. Lizette decides to face a hippo, gracefully destroys a small monster with his whip. Her partner wishes her success as she focused on the roaring monster, ready for the battle of life. He sneaks through a thick forest, trying to use trees to sneak up to the hippos. He jumps out of the shadow and tries to attack the dead zone, counting on the effect of surprise. However, the hippo immediately reveals it, and Lizette understands. Against such an enemy, stealth is useless. He quickly changes the strategy and throws a poisoned dagger into a monster, hoping that the poison is happening. But the hippo is not amazed. The tail easily reflects a dagger like garbage from the road. Without surrendering, Liz will slip under the monster, aiming at the throat, hoping for a vulnerable place. Her blade is only buzzing on the armor. The body of the hippo is too strong. Even the scratches are left. At the last moment, it changes the trajectory and hit his eye, but the monster responds with a blow, throwing it back. Lizette thinks with self-confidence that her poisoned blade has caused a ruthless blow, which should be deadly for a hippo. However, the victory is illusory. The monster is instantly counterattacking, and Lizette is aware that it is still moving. To her surprise, the hippo not only can withstand the poison, but also exhales her own poisonous fog, forcing it to retreat again. Driven into the corner and without any variance, it decides to resort to the last remedy that Prince Vario handed her. Lizette remembers his gloomy words that the damn artifact will turn her into a vessel of unsurpassed force, and feels cold horror. A sharp transition. We find ourselves in the royal palace, where a new, no less tragic chapter begins, about an incurable curse. Inside the princess, the punishment is undergoing a strict lesson of royal tea etiquette. For a few hours, she has been forced to keep her back straight. The Duchess of Melinda strictly demands attention, but the princess barely restrains the cry of fatigue, looking at endless instructions. Melinda demonstrates the perfect profile. The chin protrudes forward, the shoulders are straightened, and the look is straightforward. While the Duchess explains the social nuances from the position of the legs, the princess almost loses patience, squeezing his lips from disgust. The lecture on the importance of different feet seems to her completely meaningless, but the Duchess continues to put patterns of demonstrations. It even demonstrates the technique of crossing ankles. The smallest step in the left allegedly means a rupture of the union. When serving tea, a simple choice of 2 sugar cubes causes thunder. Una vazine, says the Duchess. The fun adding of sugar is accompanied by a yard of the Duchess. 2 cubes are a symbol of crushing, disrespect for consent. The princess tries to explain her taste, but Melinda ruthlessly reminds that the division of the number is considered a manifestation of discord. Then they move to the cup, the thumb on top, the index, along the handle. In any case, do not put your elbows on the table. Tired of absurd rules, the princess falls out of reality, stepping up a few steps back. After long hours of immersion in the little things, it finally breaks, and the Duchess is aimed at criticizing the curve of the tiara. With the cold determination of Melinda corrects the decoration, reminding that the real blood of the kings does not sway even under pressure. She secretly confesses that this hard labor, for one thing, is to please the bride of the Prince of Cardis, who requires the ideal. The princess lowers her shoulders, her spirit is broken. Responsibilities and intrigues squeeze like a heavy chain around his neck. She remembers, a dreamy wedding can be a trap between political arrangements and a mulching brother. But Melinda reminds her that the peace and prosperity of the kingdom depend on her actions, and she cannot afford a slack. The Duchess strictly commands, remember her high status before saying unnecessary word. Princess Zagriga rejects the role of a puppet. She is not going to live in the scenario of others. With a challenge in the look, says, I will choose my own path, even if I have to lay it with fire. But at the same moment he confesses. The burden of responsibilities is heavy, like shackles who tied her will. A minute of silence. It compares its position with an inevitable curse that does not allow it to breathe. In the yard, next to it, the bird stops, and the thoughts of the princess went to the one who really understands the curse, Gale. She thinks quietly. Perhaps this creator will help to break the shackles of my royal fate. The royal advisor tries to comfort the princess, hoping to ease her anxiety thoughts at least in a few calm words. He advises her to study the Empire, because knowledge is the only way that can stop the future of bloodshed. A bold idea flashes in the head of the princess, and she turns to Nitya Vivian with a playful smile. The knight rolls her eyes. Her tired look gives annoyance. The princess was again interested in legends about the heart of the demon. Kara claims that her curiosity is part of the royal duty, while Vivian calls the legend simply an oral fable. Noticing the seriousness of the knight, the princess does not retreat and insists he wants to hear all the horrors of this story. Vivian says that the reign of the king of demons was so creepy that his horrors were eventually turned into folklore. Stunned by Herd, Kara tries to understand where the truth is, and where the fiction, and Vivian confesses. Truth is still unknown. The horror of the possible disclosure of the truth is drawn on the face of the princess. The legend cannot just be a fairy tale. It becomes obvious. The heart of the demon is not just a fable, but one of the most dangerous cursed artifacts in the world. Meanwhile, the hippo begins to cough convulsively. The poison of Lisette finally penetrates into his body. But the Lisette itself is suffocating. The poisonous fog of the beast was leaked in her lung, poisoning from the inside. The huge tail of the monster picks her into the air. She is powerless, ready to accept the inevitable death. Her faithful agents shout from despair, watching their leader hangs between life and death. In the gust of despair, one of the subordinates throws a small device directly into the moord of the monster. The lightning strike and the dazzling light of the explosion cover the entire battlefield, blinding both the beasts and the fighters. Everyone is losing their orientation. Even the hippo stops for a moment, blinded by a flash. It is then that his grip weakens and Lisette falls to the ground, avoiding a fatal blow. Surprised by the efficiency of a conventional light bomb, she instantly uses this opportunity in her favor. The distraction is ongoing, but it is enough for the Lade to put on a damn bracelet, a gift of the prince. She remembers the words. This bracelet conceals the share of the heart of the king of demons. The hippo rushes forward. Lisette stands motionless, preparing to take the attacker of the highest level. Her subordinates are fated. The monster is too fast. His horns do not leave a chance for salvation. But Lisette does not shudder. With cold determination, she raises her hand, taking a blow directly. To the general shock, it catches the hippos by the horns and stops its crazy pressure in place. The ominous aura of the skeleton breaks out of her body. The bracelet awakens a dark, forbidden force. The energy is throbbing around. The essence of the king of the demons now flows with its veins, overwhelming the body with force. But despite a new power, she feels the weight of the beast still prevails. It will not work for a long time. In her eyes, the determination flashes. It is necessary to end with this once and for all, not delaying a single moment. The Lisket lifts the hippo above his head and preparing to draw a final fatal blow. Filled with demonic force, Lisette from the scope of the hippo on the ground. The earth cracks under the weight of its body. She is fated, watching the rest of the monsters in a panic escapes from the place of death of the monster. The victorious laughter breaks out of her breast while she easily pulls the body of the giant, enjoying a new force. Her dark aura causes the whole horde of monsters to run into horror. The battlefield belongs only to her. One of the agents notes that it is hard to say who is a real monster here, she or hippo. Lisette acknowledges that although she won, she has not been able to destroy the beast completely. The curse also has limits. The sudden attack of pain twists her. She begins to cough insanely, and the subordinates rush to her. Squeezing her breasts, she begs the strength of the demonic heart to retreat and release her body. The team realizes that the curse absorbs it, but fortunately, they prepared a farewell protection. They activate the rare church ritual of purification, the only hope of breaking the connection with the artifact. The bracelet is scattered into black smoke clubs, but the pain does not leave it, despite the end of the ritual. From the body, Lizen crawls a demonic creature, the material remnant of the curse that it tries to expel. The subordinates rush to it with medicinal potions, and one sharply covers the creature with a container, sealing it. Lisette shudders, realizing, even after cleaning, part of the demon's heart will remain in it forever. Turning, she understands. The prince was not going to give her a way to get rid of the curse completely. Looking at the ruins of the caravan, she declares the victory. The hippo was destroyed, and she has almost recovered. The agent reports that although some survived, most carts are destroyed, and now they have been temporarily isolated. Exhausted, Lisnet decides to wait for the patrol. Maybe he will arrive from the capital or from the outskirts of Farmaga. Her loyal team knees, in their eyes mixed feelings, relief, anxiety, and boundless devotion. She praises them for courage, and they sincerely express her admiration for her strength and unbreakable will. Lisette throws a disrespectful look at the defeated group of a wolf pack such a S-wound party calls only immediately. Her team successfully insulates the remains of the curse, sealing the proportion of the strength of the mythical heart of the demon. She confesses that even the crumb of this force was sufficient to overcome the hippomoda, all around the amazed. But this force has a terrible price. Having clenched his fist, Lisette feels her hatred of Gale Hamilton only growing. The scene changes. A strange energy ray that erupts the sky explodes in the pharmacy smithy. Meanwhile, Gale himself, not suspecting events, sneezes so that the walls shudder. He thinks whether someone is discussing him behind his back, and Mora points to the dust of the dead, which was still on his face. Changing the topic, Gale proudly demonstrates a new invention, exactly the drawing of Siren. With a pompous gesture, he opens a veil, showing a street lamp in the shape of a skull that flashes mystical flames. However, he still does not understand. Is it all they wanted? A regular skull lamp? Siren explains that mystical flame supports itself, feeding even the smallest traces of life to burn forever. Mora notes that the oil lamps are uncomfortable, and Siren adds that ordinary lights are too expensive. The gnome pursues the invention of Gale. The flames are eternal, the energy is almost consumed, and the danger of ignition is completely absent. Mora and Siren agree that the lamps are useful, but the street, lit by turtles, can be a little scared of the local. Without stopping on this, Siren proposes to replace all the city's streetlights, and Gale is gladly accepting the challenge. It is reminiscent of other orders, and it proudly shows a new weapon. Another order is made. Gale adds in passing that he has also collected several agricultural tools at her request. The panoramic frame opens a complete set of giant, creepy, cursed farms. History goes into a new section. Stunned Siren is preparing to evaluate the new Gale business. Inside, he presents his latest development, a strange, separate hand. Sharina reports that she found the perfect place for his new workshop. It turns out that this is the former alchemical shop. Gale is delighted. His dream is finally close to realization. Guildmaster Gnome reminds that the money paid for equipment is enough for Bale. All you have to do is get up and hang a new sign, and the workshop will officially be. Mora jokingly calls Gale a shopkeeper Gale, clamping his new role. Siren adds that he can always use the gilding smithy when he desires. The story returns to the beaten caravan. It has been 10 days after the hippoim. The consequences are visible to the naked eye. Half of the carts heading to the outskirts of Pharmajas are destroyed. Thanks to the help of a road patrol, the surviving finally continue the way. Meanwhile, a wolf flock without shame attaches himself to all the laurels, boasting victory over monsters. Their members greet each other. They are sure that a great reward awaits such heroic actions. One of the women sarcastically points out that she does not remember the specific contribution of the leader, which causes his annoyance. Two supporting members insist that their help was decisive, and are indignant that they have been forgotten. They boast of trophies, the eye, the tail, and the horn of hippos, stating that it is their prey. The leader brazenly attributes the merit of his Mrilov sword, depreciating the knife of a woman. From the back of the cart, Lisette looks at his flawless sword, wondering how he can lie so. A short memory shows how the whole group lay on the ground, the defeated, the complete opposite of their boasting. The past demonstrates the true reaction of the leader, the screams of horror at the sight of the monster S-class. Returning to the present, they look at the trophies, the eye, horn, and tail, and notice that all the prey has disappeared. The leader conveniently recalls that because of an intense battle, he is blurred, and uses it as a confirmation of his feat. The wolf flock sincerely believes in its own fictional heroics, completely rewriting the memories of the battle. Lisnet decides not to expose the truth. As assassins, it is important for them to stay in the shade. After a grueling journey, a broken caravan finally arrives in the agricultural city of Famdis. The survival is showered by a batch of S-wound with praiseful words, not suspecting their cowardice during the attack. The Lisette team only silently watches how these lazy ones enjoy the glory that should belong to them. The wolf flock is immediately planned to plan the celebration of victory, annoying its disguised attendants. To maintain control of the mission, Lisnet politely proposes to visit the local guild first. The leader agrees, but just to pick up the reward while insulting the assassins. Lisette barely restrains anger. As soon as they go to farmed, as they notice strange lanterns in the form of skulls that cause anxiety. Walking through the city, they look nervously on the spooky light skulls lining the quiet streets. The group discusses strange scenery until the leader recognizes the familiar style of ominous design. Everyone understands at once. It is Gale's corporate handwriting, and it becomes clear who stand for these jewelry. One of the satellites is skeptical, they say. Gale always did only damn things. The others shocked that the city accepted it. The leader smiles eagerly. If Gale is here, then he has a shop. The next point is the local guild. He caps with Galiva's negligence, grabs friends and laughs how easy it will be to find it. Not knowing that they are watching, they are fun to go to the guild, playing lick just on their hand. She confirms. Everything goes according to plan. She is particularly interested in how despised her former friend. Lisette mistakenly believes that Gale works under the cover because his old team did not trust him. Going to the local guild, the party glances at a modest building before entering. In the witch hat, One of the participants smugly mocks the locals, receiving convicted views in the Guilder. The leader of the wolf pack rudely beats his hand on the rack, demanding a meeting with Guilder. But the elf behind the stable, smiling, states that she is the head of the guild. The leader clicks his fingers, commanding the masked assassins to bring trophies. Lisette with subordinates unceremoniously thrown on the floor giant horn and tail of the hippo. Guildmaster looks at the monster's parts indifferent while the leader requires evaluation. She pretends not to understand, forcing the leader to impatiently explain what the subjects were. After identifying the parts, the party begins to praise the murder of the hippos and the cost of prey. But Guildmaster calmly replies that without head and heart this victory is not counted. The whole group fades. She correctly guesses that the hippo has actually escaped. Humiliated and angry, the leader in rage goes, promising to take revenge until the Guildmaster just smiles. When the assassins are departing, the guildswoman with irony advises the next time to finally complete the hunt. But before they have time to leave, it sharply turns around and requires what organization they really are. Smiling, she states that he knows. They wounded the hippos, not the wolf. Lisette understands that the guildmaster is too insightful and orders to retreat quickly, for mocking comments about their cover. Watching their departure, Guildmaster recalls how Gale has arrived from the capital, as this S-Joke's party now arrived. Her smile becomes predatory. And the pharmacy finally begins to become really interesting. The scene changes. Gale and Mora go quietly to a new shop on the outskirts of the city. After installing the sign, Gale asks Sharina's opinion. She confesses that a spooky design suits him perfectly. The new gaily cursed product shop is open, and he sincerely thanks Sharini for his help. He promises not to quit cooperation with Guild Cavalli, and she gladly agrees, calling him one of the best customers. Given the tomorrow's opening, Gale proposes to celebrate the celebration today. Sharina is delighted. He nods and adds that he will also call the sea. It is at this point that she appears behind their backs. The sea is a little awkward, seeing that everything is ready, and she failed to help. Gale explains that the premises were once an alchemical shop, so it almost did not need changes. To change the topic, the sea asks whether he really goes to the crypts, because he heard about it from the guild. He straightens his shoulders and proudly confirms he is still a real adventurer. However, he complains that no one wants to work with a damn craftsman, so he has to go. Gale specifies that, although he is glad to have a shop, he will not give up adventure life. He explains that he needs to collect the materials, but is currently lacking in to hire a seller. After beating through the counter, he shares the plan. Subsequently transfer the store to someone at the time of his travels. Mora, a little embarrassed, is about to offer something. She proposes to oversee the store herself and hints that he could create a party again. Having discouraged, she reminds that as the rear fighters they always worked effectively together. Read up, she confesses. He feels invincible next to him. But Gale does not catch the emotional implication of her words at all, and suddenly stomps with thought. Panazing a thawed bandage on a mummified object, he completely ignores her confession. Sharina just laughs. In the end, everyone agreed to meet after the sunset. Gale promises to prepare a treat. Sharina praises the sign of the shop, noting that she makes the store more attractive than just damn things. Gale stands in front of the store, laughing sincerely and feeling true. He is grateful to think about a new life in Famdes, good friends and his own shop, which has become the beginning of something more. Gale thinks how cozy and well finally to have a place where he really needs and accepted. In his store hangs an inanimate bell, an artifact which, according to legend, reassures the souls of children and inhabitants of Crypt. The shelves already have strange potions and artifacts that you will not find anywhere else in the world. While he is preparing for the evening celebration, the doorbell suddenly swells. Gale turns to greet the first guest, explaining that the store is not working yet. But he fades from the shock. There is a Bush, the leader of his former team. With an arrogant smile, the Kush throws him an abusive replica about his new profession. He makes fun of the fact that Gale, after all the problems, opened a cheerful bench. Gale does not have time to answer how the door opens with a roar and a familiar voice is heard. The rest of the wolf pack with hooded satellites enters the store. Gale is silent. The witch orders Assassin to wait outside, and Gale asks why his old team suddenly appeared. Outwardly, the team and her team are guessed that their leader has changed their name, and the flock has unexpectedly expanded. The masked assassins, following the order, are guarded at the entrance, waiting for new instructions. The door is closed, and the witch with a smug smile says that you can now speak frankly. Gale is nervously trying to find out what they want, reminding that they have once expelled him. But Kush ignores his questions and immediately goes to the essence. He teaches his requirements. He loudly orders to remove all the curses from their equipment, leaving Gale in a full stupor. Hearing the cries from the inside, one of the agents, Liz, asks whether they should continue to wait on the street. The subordinate confirms that their goal is Gale Hamilton, and he lands herself or act directly. She decides to observe, because this fight is the perfect opportunity to see what the legendary artifact's master is capable of. Inside, Gale realizes that he was talking about the buffs he once imposed on their equipment. He begins to doubt. Do they really think that he put harmful curses on them? He remembers how he absorbed all the negative effects in order not to harm his comrades. He recalls with anger that he has long removed all the spells from their things, leaving nothing harmful. The new section begins. Gale faces the past and still does not understand why he is accused. The party leader rages, shouts that it is revenge, but Gale denies sincere indignation. In response, the enemy grabs one of the most valuable things on the shelf, and it becomes a threat. He threw her on the floor. Gale breaks the fruits of his hard work before his eyes. Other participants join the pogrom, threatening to destroy the entire store as revenge. The wolf flock begins to methodically crush everything around, and Gale, having kneeling, watches his dream flying into piles. The witch begins to spell, and Gale panic. Combat magic in the room can destroy everything. The party leader loses patience, grabs Gale by the collar, and again demands to remove the curse. Gale is trying to explain that their indicators simply return to normal. He did not shoot Boffa intentionally, but he perceives it as an image, twisting the words. They say, Gale called them weak. A tense silence hangs between them, as the leader of the fierce look is staggering in the stubborn Gale. In the end, the couch pushes his friend and grabs a massive sword, deciding to act. It is ominously hints that the easiest way to remove the curse is to destroy its creator. Other participants in the party support this opinion, having a delight to end Gale. Kush lifts weapons, raging about the whole way to this city, which is only annoying Gale even more. But instead of a stroke, he beats Gale with his arms, cruelly and without hesitation. Gale falls from the power of the blow, another reminder of the cruelty of former comrades. But the instincts of the cursed craft work instantly. It answers, even without realizing it. The couch loses balance and falls. In the melee, the fist was more effective than the sword. Substituting, Gale with anger states that he will not allow you to destroy the shop created by the efforts of friends. He has already had enough humiliation, but now they also despise the city that accepted it, and this is the limit. Filling with a cold rage, Gale calls the former leader to fight, outside, once and for all. The Liznet team watches, preparing to evaluate Gale's true strength during the battle. Lisette smiles. Everything follows her plan. Enemies will destroy each other. She mentally notes that the wolf flock will be the perfect goat for the future. The angry Chush rises and accepts a challenge full of determination to break Gale. The witch from the Kush team smiles contemptuously. They are sure that Gale will regret it. The leader explains that they recently received a small wealth and Gale surprises. He raises the bottle and boasts that they spent everything on the most expensive buffets sold by the capital. Party members mocking the bottles mockingly, mocking that they are forced to spend elixirs on such as him. The couch sighs satisfied, feeling the effect of potion pours on the body. A bright flash covers the whole team. Their characteristics grow sharply, and Gale is forced to close his eyes. It immediately recognizes the smell and energy. These are high-quality amplifiers from the guild. Gale's eyes are expanding. He finally realizes that they have used. Among the wreckage, it recognizes the rare one user essence of abilities, which is published only by the Guild of Adventurers. Kush makes fun, they say. These are things that a cursed artisan with a low rating never see. The witch mocks Gale, they say. Their new power is just a return to the former glory. But he stands on his own. They did not curse. Increased potions, 3 fronts are rapidly rushing forward, seeking to suppress their former friend. Gale is closely monitoring their movements and immediately recognizes the dangerous combat location. The witch says smartly that Gale has always been in the rear, so he has never seen their corporate formation in action. They close it in the technique of wolves, to surround the goal and crush on all sides. As a former member, Gale gaps his teeth, knowing how insidious this attack is from the flanks. The tactic makes the opponent focus on one enemy, opening his back for a deadly blow. He tries to keep in sight of the Kush, but immediately knocks him away from the panthely of another member. The Melissa warrior is lightning lightly past him, causing a rapid cut. She caps with his inattention. Gale realizes that she has already trapped a coordinated attack. Melissa laughs, realizing that their reinforced characteristics make them too fast for him. But despite the speed of enemies, Gale does not lose faith. He knows their tactics and believes that he can break it. But he is forced to rush to full when the hatch launches a whole volley of metal weapons. Gale is rolled on the ground, barely avoiding the deadly rain. The insidious hatch is preparing for a new wave of throws, clearing in a smug smile. Gale understands that hatch attacks from distance are no less dangerous than the strikes of the other two. The blades are poisoned. Even a small scratch can be deadly. Avoiding daggers, he suddenly must bend. The Kush swung his heavy sword. He is surprised to see that Gale, having clapped his teeth, still has time to respond to their attack. Meanwhile, The witch begins to prepare a fiery spell, and Gale is worried that the city does not hurt. Kush causes crazy blows, but stubborn Gale is evading each of them. The witch orders Gale to surround the Gale to block all the ways of retreat. When it seems that he is no longer fleeing, Gale pulls 2 huge scrolls. He has his own plan. With an elegant movement, he unfolds scrolls, and the whole flock instantly finds a trap of cursed runes. He smiles. It turns out that all these evasion was a trap to lure them to the right place. If they have increased their characteristics with objects, it will reduce them with their own. The style of the craft will curse. Hardly clicking on his fingers, he activates the antidote against their zill, a unique method. The runes dissolve in the black fog. Gale decided to give them taste their own poison. A giant bell recalculation grows from the ground, delaying enemies in the maelstrom of dark energy. Gale explains, this is a one-time artifact that works only after choosing a goal. Gale explains that the artifact captures everyone nearby, imposing a powerful curse of exhaustion. He was made of ashes of a man who is unjustly imprisoned for life. This item is filled with an eternal insult that condemns anyone who dares to approach. The scene changes. Gale goes to a single task, exploring the abandoned, destroyed village. Inside one of the dilapidated buildings, it finds the ugly spirit of the dead embedded in the wall. Feeling a vicious curse, he notes that the creature is completely tight and cannot move. Looking at the exhausted creature, Gale guesses that he is behind a tragic story. He reaches out his hand, offering to listen to the suffering of the spirit and give him peace. Before the glowing magical circle, Gale reads a strong dispersal spell to release his soul. When the curse dissolves, the ugly body melts, opening the calm face of the old. The spirit confesses that Gale is the first to come not for battle, but just to listen. Gale deeply understands the loneliness that has accompanied the soul for all of these years. The old man is poured with tears, recognizing that the isolation began long before his death. The memory ends. Gale stands alone, completing the ritual of liberation of the soul. It returns to the present time and reveals its counter-attack, a curse that slowly depreciates their strength. Kush laughs scornfully, assuring the team that Gale's curse is only children's games. But as soon as the trap worked, Gale runs away rapidly, leaving behind the cry of a lost flock. He is satisfied inside. Everything goes according to plan. His enemies are already weakened. The next goal is to take the battle away from the city so that no peaceful resident will suffer. A weakened flock, already feeling the effect of the curse, chases after him in his eyes. Gale understands that a good knowledge of the terrain is its main advantage in this pursuit. He goes to the abandoned outskirts, preparing to lure them into another trap. The quick look confirms. All 4 members of the pack have hit and pursue it. He shouts something provocative, forcing them not to stop and run to where a surprise awaits them. Suddenly the pursuit stops. They get an isolated building on the very edge of the city. It is here that the curse is fully activated. Members of the pack feel terrible fatigue and heaviness. They cannot understand why the best elixirs from the capital are no longer working. Their leader explodes anger. Gale's curse proved much stronger than he expected. Feeling hopeless, he looks back to the hood ally, hoping to get an object for removing the curse, but finds only emptiness. Mysterious allies disappeared without a trace. The leader of the pack explodes in rage, realizing that the mysterious allies have left him to her. In the shadow, the Lisnan team watches Gale leads a wolf flock away, the perfect course of its plan. The memory shows the moment when Gale activated the damn bell before escape. Lisnitz recognizes with tension, Gale's glory as a creator cursed is quite well deserved. It is affected by the number of artifacts that he carries with him so easily. The subordinate asks for further actions, noting that the fight has attracted extra attention. Lisnit understands the city's guards are about to arrive in order to understand the chaos. The sounds of the steps approximate. Several guards are already on the approach. She clicks her tongue, angry that her attempt to go unnoticed falls. Deciding to act, she orders the team to restrain the audience, and she is preparing to intervene. Before the eyes, the vision flashes, a figure tied with dark tentacles. She grabs her breasts, feeling familiar with pulsation. The fragment of the heart of the Demon King comes to life. Forgetting caution, she screams the team to hide. The situation came out of control. One of the agents falls on the ground in agony, and everyone guesses. The seal on the artifact could be destroyed. But Lisnet knows. The protection was too strong to break down just like that. But suddenly she feels near force. I will not weaken for the very essence of the Demon King. She shudders. Horror covers her when the truth stands before her eyes. The debris is not broken. It resonates with Gale's bell, recognizing it equal in force. The remnants of the curse in her body explode out, and she in a panic orders the team to retreat. She tries to restrain dark energy, but she looks at the curse absorbs her hand. The command is covered by a wave of curse. Their characteristics fall even from touch. One of the subordinates is guessing that Gale Hamilton's hands are a matter. Lisnit screams in pain, realizing it is not just Debev, but something much worse. She barely holds on her feet. identifying a whole bouquet of effects. Slowing down, piercing protection. The curse spreads further. Fear, illusions, the effect of sheep's skin attack her team. The subordinate does not believe the eyes. Even their elite training did not prepare for such a combination. Listenet orders an immediate complete indentation. Touching this energy means death, as for a pack. One of the agents does not have time to escape and gets into the maelstrom of dark energy. While the assassins are in panic, Gale disappears unnoticed, and the team understands the goal is lost. Subordinate confused. Why Gale runs away, having a full advantage in this battle? Listenet cannot grasp Gale's logic, but immediately orders the team to go after. The subordinates agree that he is exactly their purpose, but they are surprised. Why he spent such a powerful artifact at the beginning. They notice that Gale runs away not to the allies, but on the contrary, towards the ruins, avoiding support. Listenet smiles ominously and decides to leave the wolf of the pack, focusing on Gale, who is now on his own. Meanwhile, the flock continues the persecution, and the hero leads them to the ominous ruins of the old hospital on the outskirts. Listenet mocks his choice of arena, considering the pointless to hide among the dead. After receiving clear orders, the assassins go to a hot harassing raid. Despite self-confidence, the team is soon depleted, hardly managing the incredibly fast Gale. They are doubted. Who really is this person if even their elite persecution skills do not help? Some of them suggest that it can be under the influence of reinforcing drugs. But Listenet is doubted. Maybe he has always been so fast. They are aware that they still experience the residual effect of the curse without even falling into a direct blow. Listenet compresses his fist, knowing that she has no right to lose such an independent and talented artifactor like Gale. It orders to continue the pursuit, allowing the use of fatal force. The main thing is not to let it escape. In the heat of persecution, elite assassins make a critical mistake, completely lose their vigilance to the environment. Their noise attracts the attention of a massive shadow creature that has been hidden in the forest. It is a wounded beaster who growls, recognizing the smell of his abusers. At this time, the wolf pack is depleted, still depressed by Gale's curse. Kush sighs irritatedly, complaining that they are now moving at a turtle speed. Suddenly, they are alerted by the sound of approaching steps. Moira appeared in front of them, quietly asking if they had caused chaos near Gale's new bench. Kush is angry forward, demanding explanations. What does she want? The witch burns with envy, seeing a confident posture and appearance of Moira. Kush does not believe the eyes, recognizing the elegant Moor with a bottle of wine in his hands. The whole flock is in amazement, unable to understand the sudden appearance of the former ally. Their surprise grows into anger. Why did it appear right now? They recall how Gale was kicked out, and soon Moira disappeared. Coincided too suspicious. Gradually, they roll on alarming insight. Too many strange matches. The witch exclaims that the appearance of both Gale and Moira in one town cannot be a coincidence. It points to the rival, demanding that it be connected with Gale. The wolf flock comes to the conclusion. Gale and Moira conspired them long before the team break. The wolf flock is amazed, completely believing in his own conspiracy born of his own poisoned logic. Moira just smiles Crivo. Her absurd accusations are sincerely fun. She sighs disappointment, though not surprised. A typical self-righteous beacon. Having clenched his teeth, Moira requires attention, ready to destroy their nonsense with arguments. The witch throws the image arrogantly, believing that her mind allows her to see through any lie. With confidence, she announces that he knows more, is fully convinced of her own wrong correctness. The expression of Moira changes to the demonic mask of rage, frightening the whole flock with one look. When frightened rivals ask who she is, Moira calmly asks to listen to her version. She stepped forward, reminding that Gale was kicked out of the first and called it afterwards. With a cold smile, she prepares a question that will completely break their logic. Moira asks with confidence, how did she deserve such accusations? The leader of the pack will mute, confused as Moira leans closer, demanding a clear answer. She with irony rejects their theory, asking how she could have made with Galele even before his expulsion. Take a deep breath, she returns to the leader with her back, is ready to distribute all his arguments. She accuses them of hypocrisy, reminding them of pursuing a former friend to destroy his new business. Touching the earth, she activates a magical circle, preparing for a simple but powerful lesson. Leaning closer, asking whether he remembers at least one basic rule of humanity. With a bright flash, she releases her strength, shouting, "Do not do others that you do not want to yourself." The explosive wave rejects the whole flock, forcing the leader to gather in combat line. Squeezing his teeth, he recognizes their weakening, but is convinced that they still have a chance. Moira mockingly calls on his attempt to attack while he barely holds the sword. Squeezing his fist, she announces that now her turn to show the real shock of the blows. It is surrounded by a soft glow. It reveals that it has time to impose on the intensifying spells while they were stomping. In a fierce attack, she promises that this lesson has been engulfed in their memory for a long time. the face of the leader in bruises and scratches. He becomes a victim of devastating and unilateral beating. Grabbing it by the collar, Moira states that he returns the debt for the destroyed Gale shop. She lends to him, hoping that this experience will finally teach them at least a little sympathy. As soon as the witch rushes from behind, Moira calmly warns, "It is better to monitor the true threat." Without delaying the moment, it turns and draws a devastating strike of an attacking witch. Rejecting the leader, Moira watches the Debalfa Gael weaken the whole pack. Moira stands over a fallen witch, coldly announcing that the battle no longer looks like 1 against 4. She states with confidence in her voice, "Now it's 2 to 4, and the advantage is no longer on their side." The witch and the robber rise again, swaying the advantage of the long battle and preparing for a new attack. The robber states that it will not fall as easy as their front warriors, and pulls the eagle. Moira responds with an icy look. Her face clearly says that their strategy is not frightened. In a noisy tavern, a young artisan concentrates, draws a new damn artifact from recently obtained materials. His focus is interrupted by a girl with short hair, who calls him named Gale. Suddenly he learns that his contract is cancelled. News beats like a thunder in the clear sky. The party leader officially drives him out of the wolf pack, leaving Gale in stupor. This news cuts memory. He recently created a command for the team without noticing the figure observing from afar. He is sharply returned to reality by a leader who is irritatedly demanding full attention. His patience is already on the verge. Paladin Kush leans close to him and shouts in his face, "You are released!" One of the members takes his notebook, ridiculed the facial expression, and the rest is restrained by a malicious laughter. The whole party surrounds Gale. Their ridicule and views testify. It was a common decision. Full of confusion, Gale asks why it is so sudden. But in response, he hears a cold excuse that everything is so obvious. Kush ironically parodies his surprise while the artisan begs to mention 3 years of devotion. The leader brutally depreciates his profession by calling the artifacts a lumpy junk that is no longer needed. And to hurt even more, it adds, Gale is the lowest among all, a fact that injures particularly. He desperately reminds how his objects provided them with dozens of victories in the most difficult hikes. He pulls the amulet with the eye, trying to prove its value, but the party turns away with disgust. The leader is eagerly knocking his foot and says with a mockery, "The S-level pack does not need your damn junk." And he is getting their new replacement is already here. A magician in the hood named Moira, the master of Bafov and Debaf. The party immediately rushes to Nu, and the leader only smiles, making Gale morally. And as the final blow, the leader confirms his worst fear. Now he is absolutely unnecessary. The humiliation becomes public. The audience whispers about the ballast that was thrown from the famous team. Gale's consciousness is fever. He realizes that this is a betrayal that he never predicted. In despair, he asks another chance, promising that he has even more powerful artifacts in stock. But his plea is greeted by the wall of indifferent faces. No sympathy. With the tense teeth, he last asks whether the leader is really sure, reminding of the years of faithfulness. His heart is broken. He remembers his dream to stay in a wolf pack forever, even if he is not at war. The leader brutally achieves Gale with sarcastic advice, to quit adventures and open a shop of damn things. The team immediately picks up the mockery. They say its crazy products are perfect for the cut. With a heavy heart, Gale finally accepts his expulsion, and Moira in the hood calmly watches the stage. Having said the empty farewell, he turns away as the former team already erases it from memory. It is covered by a wave of betrayal. They left not only all the prey, but also all its expensive materials. Looking at the door, Gale sees how the team celebrates and decides it is time to cancel everything he did for them. In the hand, a small paper mascot. Hardly focusing, he activates him, cracking the magical seal. The memories reveal a secret. It secretly increased their equipment with hidden charms. One order, and the mascot disappears in the outbreak of light, tearing all the connections with its enchantments. Instantly, the magical reverse stroke throws it on his knees. The body shudders in pain. Knocking on the floor, he opens the truth. All his damnable objects had a hidden price for the master. Shocking confession. Gale himself assumed all the side effects of their equipment, from reducing experience to negative statuses. Slowly raising, he kneed his hand and realizes that his victims made the command so strong. Now, free from the curse, he feels light and smiles. The team has lost its secret trump. He is approaching a stranger, and Gale is in mind that he has just returned the power equivalent to a 20% decline from each of the 5 allies. The status check confirms, level 48, all characteristics have increased, and in stock 875 points for distribution. Stranger, a strict woman, breaks him out of thought, as he internally rejoices in his incredible statistics. The Treku requires him to free up the place, forcing the confused Gale to grab a bag and run from the tavern. Once on the street, he straightens his hands, enjoying freedom and new force. He goes through city streets without money, but with a full bag of his own creations. The future is open. His path leads through the humor market, where merchants are promoting their fresh shops loudly. This scene reminds him of the bullying of the leader. They say he could open his own bench. Gale is thinking. In fact, he has long dreamed of his store, though disgusting to follow the advice of traders. But stopping, he accepts reality. Now it is free to create and explore without any restrictions. His face is illuminated by a confident smile. A new section of life begins with hope and inspiration. Full of determination, Gale decides to open his own bench to make a new start. Meanwhile, his former comrades do not even suspect that they have lost in Silver Wolf. They celebrate for dinner, facilitating that they finally get rid of the ballast. Smiling, they agree that it was too packed and had to be expelled even earlier. While everyone is mocking from Gale, Moira is silently standing away, watching his new team. The leader unexpectedly admits that he knew about the talismans for the luck that Gale added to their equipment. This calls the team immediately. Above the table suddenly appear complex magical circles, stunning all participants of the celebration. Moira immediately recognizes the spell. It is the removal of the magic, and the equipment of the wolf flock begins to glow anxiously. The shining runes crack and disappear. All powerful spells disappear into oblivion. A shadow is lowered above their feast, a symbol of the huge power they have just got rid of. Team members in confusion complain of sudden weakness and difficulty in the body. Moira stands aside with horror in his eyes. A drop of sweat slowly slips on the temple. Others ask what happened for scattering, not knowing its true essence. The leader immediately guesses the revenge of Gale. One of the comrades regrets that they have not earned him before. The new Magina is only shocked to look at the situation, considering it full of madness. She does not understand why the purifying spell caused such a catastrophe. This is contrary to the logic of magic. Moira comes to the conclusion the magic was drawn to all four, so Gale just removed his own buffs. Despite the anger of the team, intuition tells her there was no evil intent in Gale's actions. Paladin is just mocking. Gale will never be a threat. Others are eager to support. They will just break it. Moira tries to explain that it was not an attack, but the leader rudely interrupts it, demonstrating his power. He coldly warns, his word is the law, and it must quickly find its place in a pack. The magician ominously promises to destroy Gale, and the other mocks his allegedly weakened magic. Paladin is threatened with cruelty. He wants to cripple Gale's hands forever, while the rest falls into cruel euphoria. The leader observes calmly, and Moira silently condemns all his eyes. She remembers the feeling when the diffuser worked. It was not an illusion, but something true and important. Her mind is a puzzle. Scattering did not attack, but simply took away the force that supported their characteristics. She understands. All this time the team was under the influence of a continuous powerful buff. One of the allies tries to remove it from numbness, but Moira cannot reject the consequences of this discovery. The idea that the creator cursed has made positive effects is impossible. Gale can be a genius. It concludes that Gale's objects went far beyond the skill of a regular artisan. Yet she cannot ignore. If it was deliberate, Gale has a dangerous force. Her new team, meanwhile, continues to fool and quarrel, completely ignoring alarm. She looks at them with disgust. Their scanty behavior contrasts with the power they lost. Moira is questioned. Does this team really deserve the status of S-Rang without its real source of force? And then it is covered by a terrible thought. All the power of the wolf pack. Perhaps it was only who they betrayed. Meanwhile, while Gale is leaning away, the mysterious figure with crystal hair is followed by the shadow. The leader is waving the alarm of Moira, confidently stating that Gale is no longer their problem. His lips curls a smug smile. Tomorrow they are waiting for a big event, which will prove their strength. The rest of the team supports joyfully ahead of the S-level the task that will show the guild who they really are. With the Lumina Wolf's joy, he celebrates his first S-class task, not suspecting that they are stepping on death. The leader solemnly announces the goal. Bestie hunting is a monster of catastrophic level. Moira is stunned. They are sure of themselves. They knock on the mugs in honor of their own glory. Moira looks into her mug and his design. Anxiety sprouts in her along with understanding of the severity of the moment. She realizes that they all did not understand Gale's true power and lived in the illusion of their own power. The celebration fades. Empty mugs remain as a symbol of the empty victory they believed. Meanwhile, Gale's new life begins with a pursuit of a cunning bird that stole his necklace. He gets to the trading guild and presents his business plan as a weird guild with a pumpkin head. With a bright smile and determination in the eyes, Gale declares that he will open his own store. Guildmaster leads him to the registration table, and Gale himself dreams of a place in the main square of the capital. Reality hurts. The desired place is worth a crazy 4 gold coins a day. His palm rings all his wealth, only 3 silver. Seeing his financial condition, Guildmaster points to cheaper places near the square. Adopting inevitably, Gale moves towards less prestigious but crowded side streets. There he is located near the old collapsed counter, which clearly survived the best of times. Guildmaster kindly gives him a starting set, and Gale is sincerely thanked. This is more than enough to start. By sorting things, he decides to sell his damn products and strange things as an original interior decor, but immediately faces a new problem: how to set a price for your bizarre, unique items. He decides to sell the cost of materials, at least not to stay in the minus. Guildmaster returns, raps. He looks at the clutter and gives Gale a lightweight head on his head. With fast, skilled movements, he shows how to decorate the showcase so that it looks attractive and professionally. Gale is delighted with the result. Its modest bench is now reminiscent of a real shop. Guildmaster adds the last advice: success begins with a good supply of goods. Such simple kindness almost brings Gale to tears. It contrasts too much with the humiliation he has experienced in a pack. With a heavy heart, he takes his favorite, a necklace with his eye, and understands that he must sell even the most valuable. Carefully touch it on the hook in the showcase, adding to the collection of bizarre, spooky jewelry. An unexpected wave of excitement covers it, but Gale takes it in hand. It's time to open a bench. He watches with doubt for people who pass by, not sure whether their strange products will be interested. In order to cheer himself up, he slammed his cheeks and prepared to take the challenge of fate. Take a deep breath. He gathered the courage and turned to the crowd, ready to present his goods. In a loud voice, he advertises a unique selection of Debe amulet and equipment for every adventure seeker. His spit is immediately interrupted by a woman who believes that Magdabaphorus is more profitable than buying items. Gale explains the main advantage with a smile. His things do not consume magic and accessible to everyone. Confidence in the voice attracts the first interested, whose faces are of genuine interest. One buyer is affected by the low price of a poisonous mascot. Gale explains he takes only for his work. He gladly demonstrates a wider range of debe and bizarre amulets for various effects. I am convinced by a favorable price. The buyer reaches a wallet, and suddenly his gaze stops on his sword. Gale describes the effects of the blade, reduces agility but punches armor and gives plus 10% to all other statues. The buyer carefully examines the strange runes on the blade and asks an explanation. Hearing that the sword is cursed, the man in a panic releases a whole barrel with weapons. Ignoring the bonuses, he demands confirmation, and Gale calmly admits, yes, the sword is really damn. The buyer scratches the nape of the neck, not understanding why someone to buy something with a curse. Fasting, Gale offers the sword as a unique wall decoration. The man views the blade, acknowledging, although a spooky, it looks quite interesting and even attractive. I am convinced by originality. The buyer buys the sword as a mascot for good luck and throws a coin for calculation. As bonus, Gale gives 3 scattering mascots. The client is delighted with such a service. Smiling, he realizes a new business model works: to be honest about curse and make a decision. He recalls how he sold a powerful cursed necklace to the one who just got involved in his cat design. Another purchase took damn boots at frantic speed to hand them to the subordinate. Saying goodbye to a satisfied client, Gale thinks whether 5 mascots will be cursed a year. The next sale is a cursed crossblower with a fever, purchased for hunting tournament. One of the visitors asks the subject, and Gale begins to start a story about the legendary hero. He shares the story of the Berserko, who wore an incredibly powerful but cursed armor. Gale realizes that sincerity and bonus mascots are the key to the success of his non-standard craft. The glory of his unique approach is rapidly spreading, collecting a momented crowd around the shop. The queue for cheap cursed equipment with free mascots is stretched until the end of the street. In a matter of minutes, all the goods are purchased. The counter remained empty. Gale happily lifts an empty bag, rejoicing that he sold every last product. He remembers his various clients, among whom was the one who considered cursed things in the style of det metal. But as soon as he was about to go, as the noise from the other end of the street made him turn. New panic buyers run to the counter, but Gale only breathes their hands. Everything is sold. The crowd sighs with disappointment, and Gale is trying to escape from his own popularity. People begging him to curse on their equipment, promising to return with things. Overloaded, Gale runs away on the roofs, jumping through the streets like a shadow. Meanwhile, a group of adventurers rest in tavern after a long day of adventure. One of them jokingly causes a friend, wearing a cursed ring purchased from Gale. The ring flashes light, and before everyone appears, the status screen of friend is silent. The friend looks at the numbers, and the owner of the ring smiles with a proud look. The screen confirms incredible. All characteristics have increased by a crazy 50%. Taverna visitors are surprised. How can one accessory have that power? The old warrior just smiles and states that he will never part with this subject, causing unanimous approval. At the neighboring tables, adventurers discuss the overwhelming prices of the church for removal. One of them proposes to resell free mascots, but a friend quickly stops him. He is afraid of the anger of the church. Everyone remembers how much the church asks, and as a generous contrast, Gale looked with his grateful decisions. Visitors admire the mysterious artisan, realizing that he will soon become the most popular in the city. One of the men is frowning. Something familiar is blinking in memory. He has already seen Gale somewhere. He looks at the glowing ring, and the feeling of recognition becomes even stronger. But the adventurers do not even know what history is behind the legendary master. They cannot imagine how much he sacrificed, for years taking the curse of the whole team. And even more so that the person by whom the S-rank party survived was thrown out like garbage. From that day, Gale becomes a local legend, counting the earned coins and planning a new life. But a few hours before the fate of the wolf flock was already doomed. They went to the forest for their S-rank quest, full of self-confidence without any basis. Their hunting for Beshmano began with a powerful explosion that destroyed trees in the way. The mighty paladin fell immediately, and his comrades collapsed nearby, not having to do anything. Surprised and broken, they look at each other, not understanding why they became so helpless. The leader raises the sword with the effort, and his pride of S-rank melts every second humiliation. The shadow comes from the goal, the Bekmo of the class of catastrophe, indifferent to their bravado. The leader growls with rage, not understanding why the monster ignores his blows. Meanwhile, Gale is working quietly in his new room, creating another masterpiece. His last warning, which the leader disregarded, now herds as a harbinger of death. The memory shows how self-confident the leader has decided that Moira is easily adapted to the rhythm of the S-rank group. He presses on a newcomer until he smiles, and the rest of the team laughs. Noticing the target, the leader states that this is the perfect chance for easy warm-up. On their way, there is a lonely OGR, a prey that a flock considers easy. They attack, but in surprise they understand that the blows do not harm him. The warrior complains of poor control as the UGR suddenly rejects her to the ground. The leader clicks his tongue and watches another comrade in a tree. In despair, he shouts at the magician, demanding explanations why he still does not cast. The magician asks for another second. His circle is unstable and trembling. After a long witchcraft, it creates a pathetic flame, and Paladin is shocked from its weakness. The leader sees Moira pulls the wounded Paladin, saving him from a deadly blow. Angry, he yells at Moir, demanding to strengthen the detachment immediately. It is indignant that it already applies a reinforcement. It turns out that she has constantly imposed buffs. Dull magical circles glow under each of them. Left almost without energy, Moira prepares for the last desperate spell. It pours all the magic in itself, and Paladin, their circles flash at bright light. It reports that double characteristics, and the leader smiles, confident in victory. Increased Paladin rushes forward, struck with all the new force. In his view, he is determination. He puts all the passion in the scope of the sword. The Ogro effortlessly stops the sword with 2 fingers, stunning Paladin. Then, with a bored expression, he throws him away, as if to shout extra fly. Paladin falls hard on the ground, and Moira barely has time to pull it away. The leader falls on his knees and breaks on Moir, insulting it as a worthless support. She fiercely replies that it was he who ordered to keep Bafa for battle with Bekmonia. Hermily announcing a desperate step, she reaches a scroll with Debaf, who left Gale. The leader grabs her hand, outraged by the fact that she is about to use Gale's curse. Moira confidently states that his junk is their only hope for survival. The memory shows how Moira reads a letter from Gale, in which he left her instructions and magical objects. She directly asks the leader whether they used a curse in combat tactics. He pushes her roughly, contemplating that Gale was responsible for such strategies. Angry, he argues that magical circles are not protection, but a real curse from Gale. Others gladly support this version, and Moira is only skeptical of their blind faith. They are broken by one and only Obroma. They decide to retreat, accusing all the former crafter. The Pride leader categorically denies the escape, considering it to be a shame for the S-Rong team. One of the comrades tries to reassure him, offering a temporary indentation and returning after removing the curse. They agree to the strategic assignment, because even the OGR has already lost interest in them. The leader sharply changes his mood and enthusiastically exclaims that time to go back. He orders the stunned Marairi to impose a speed because he wants to escape as soon as possible. Moira is amazed at their haste and reminds that they are a S-Rang team, although they behave like newcomers. The leader neglects her words, hypocritically asking if she was not injured, leaving her in surprise. The team accuses Moir of inactivity and orders her to stay in the rearguard. Walking their hand, they flee, throwing it against the monster. The S-Rang flock officially escapes, leaving the recruit for the same way. Left alone, Moira shudders, noticing something like a pity in the view. But he refuses to be a victim. He is raging with a scroll with a curse from Gale. The mascot explodes a cloud of smoke, wrapping the battlefield. The smoke comes out of Moira, full of fierce, and sweeps to a revenge for betrayal. It disappears rapidly, leaving its cowardly allies far behind. The leader is breathing hard. The escape has exhausted him completely. Other members of the pack are lost under the tree, complaining of nausea and loss of equipment. Paladin boils with anger because of defeat, while others are instantly accused of more. Based on the tree, the team members finally admit that something is wrong. They are too exhausted after a simple retreat. The warrior again insists that the guilty of Moira, looking for any reason to make her to the goat. Their quarrel quickly grows into a petty swearing, completely ignoring the real danger. But the leader, finally thinking, notes they lost their strength even to Moira's buffs, hinting at the true cause. Instead of solving the problem, magicians and paladin begin to threaten each other, pushing their ego. Meanwhile, the leader again accuses Gale, and suddenly Moira appears behind, tired but alive. Paladin meets her sarcastically, mocking how long she ran. Moira silently throws something heavy past his head, demanding attention. Everyone turns and see what she dropped. The cut head of the same plow from whom they fled. The whole flock is dying. Self-confidence instantly disappears before the unconditional proof of her strength. Meanwhile, Gale is carelessly walking in the market, reflecting on the striking success of his first trading day. He is surprised to realize that selling things in the bazaar is fun, though I would like more clients not related to adventures. He remembers how ordinary residents looked at his goods with interest, but did not dare to buy. The main profit was made by desperate adventurers who wanted to get at cursed armor and mascots. Suddenly, his reflection interrupts the bell. Someone's attention draws him to the showcase. Inside it is met by a familiar guilder with a pumpkin head, who is calmly interested in the sales. Gale's Nyakal recognizes success and adds that he is already planning to move to a better place. Guildmaster is immediately interested when Gale shows him the desired location where he wants to make a profit. His dream is to get a place in the elite area of the city, instead of the old ruin. It is aimed at a rich nobility quarter, where they sell things for the most demanding. Guildmaster offers a place only 10 yards from that site, the perfect start in the luxury world. Gale assumes that noble customers value style and fashion than utilitarian. He understands that his cursed artifacts can be seen as an exclusive decor. A dreamy smiles, imagining how he hires the interiors of grand locks. He also remembers a spooky adventurer with bloody eyes, another argument to move to a safer place. Shaking alarming memories, Gale focuses on his goals again. He proudly stands in front of a new kiosk, full of determination to conquer another trading day. But he does not know that a mysterious woman with crystal hair is carefully watched by him from the dark lane. Meanwhile, the scratched Moira is annoyed by listening to the next reproaches for delay. The flock scornfully states that she hopes she finally understood her mistakes, completely ignoring her act. Moira looks absolutely puzzled by their superiority, and Paladin does not bring his eyes off the head of the plow. But suddenly this head is inflated to the original size. The action of Gale's subject has exhausted, and the creature is alive. The leader, instantly panic, escapes the first, leaving Moir to restrain the monster alone. A full-sized ogro is coming, and a frightened flock again rushes, forgetting everything in the world. In panic, the detachment members begin to push each other forward, trying to sacrifice someone for their own rescue. The wolf floss is being terrified, leaving behind the plow, which seems to be not even interested in harassment. The grueling days pass before they finally reach the guilds, exhausted and depressed. Silence hangs over them, like a heavy cloud. In the eyes is a complete defeat, on the soul of bitterness. In the tractor, they complain that they get lost, stink, and desperately dream of a hot bath. The tractor hostess points to more, but it cold notices that they received what they deserved. The leader sounds rudely to the table, demanding attention from the opposite end of the hall. He slams his fist on the table, and his associates complain about poor service and his own stench. Calmly, without emotions, the Traknitsa puts one glass of water on the table, specifying that it is not free. Paladin asks whether she understands whom he is dealing with, trying to click. In response, he hears a straight line. A bunch of whirlwinds and freebies. A flock in a stupor from such boldness. She adds that their term of residence has expired yesterday and orders immediately to release the room. Paladin tries to use their S-Ronga status as a lever, but the Traknitsa just reaches out your hand to pay. Comrades push him to pay, until they notice his panic. The wallet is empty. It turns out that all the money went to restore equipment and buy new little things. Everything went to new garments for the magician and Paladin's armor, which he destroyed the OGR during the battle. The leadership saber was also broken, now irrevocably. Their equipment was scattered with dignity. The leader looks around in search of a solution, but the reality is relentless. A wolf pack completely bankrupt. The hostess does not quench, demanding for the living 5 silver, with pressure and pressure. Melissa Warrior looks eagerly at a single glass of water standing on the table. Ignoring everyone, she grabs him and squeezes the last drop without thinking about any of his comrades. After that, the whole flock turns to Moira, indignant that she has not yet shared her money. But Cold replies, her money is her business. despite their promises to share future Nagarods. The leader condescendingly points out that such rules apply only after successful mission. Melissa sharply grabs stunned Moir, stating that all of her belongs to the party, and all party, also party. With a greedy smile, Melissa grabs his wallet into her, announcing that it is now a detachment property. Paladin looks in surprise the contents of the wallet, whispering the offensive phrase while Moira looks at him silently. The detachment goes away with her money, coldly reminding her that she is only a supporting magician. But before he arranges his delay, his face disrupts a powerful blow. Moira explodes fury and sends a much larger Paladin one blow to fly back like a cloth. Paladin, shaking after a stroke, barely holds on his feet, and his comrades have frozen with his eyes rounded. The angry Lemonissa grabs the stool to attack but stumbles and fails to fly into the wooden panel. From the spring, it smashes the stool, just to understand, only hit the abandoned cloak of Moir. Looking back, she freezes. The angry Moira is already standing nearby, burning anger. Moira easily twists Melissa, and she screams until the detachment leader advises her to calm down. The patience broke up. Moira splashes everything by calling a pack of pathetic postures without true talent. Mag and Melissa immediately threaten her, demanding to follow her tongue. But they should move forward as Moira calmly touches the floor and activates the spell. A moment, and both lie on the floor, disarmed, without even understanding what happened. Moira proudly poses over them, as if nothing happened, and the leader looks at her with complete misunderstanding. Having defeated the whole pack, Moira apologizes to the Trector, joke that she was in the hall properly. Strutting on top of the beaten comrades, she has fun saying that she officially throws this team. Meanwhile, a rich nobleman is considering his goods with genuine interest near Gale's new counter. He proudly demonstrates a lantern in the style of Vasilisk. A woman surprised, but passionate about his unusual. Smiling, Gale reports that the lantern is cursed. Such a move knocks down the purchase from the Pantalik. She reacts with theatrical shock, and her gloomy accompanier interferes sharply. Gale is involuntarily shudder, realizing that excessive frankness with this client can be a mistake. The accompanying person expresses dissatisfaction, but is interested when he hears that the subject can serve as a decor. Unexpectedly for himself, Gale gets a purchase and a generous tea. The strange tastes of the aristocrats really work. He notices that his practical combat objects are not interested in the new audience at all. Although the day was full of surprises, he considers it successful and begins to collect the counter. In rethinking the client's words, he concludes, his goods are unusual, but not yet fashionable. Suddenly, he is stopped by an urgent voice. Someone calls him just before he was about to leave. Turning, he sees a mysterious girl with crystal hair, who seemed to have been looking for him for a long time. Looking at her simple dress, Gale suspects that a nobleman has escaped before him, and she watches her carefully. Internally, he notes how much his goods are different from the standard while she studies them carefully. Suddenly, her face glows. She confesses that she is just in love with his unusual designs. It takes the ring and admires his mercy, which leads Gale to embarrassment and admiration. He is encouraged by praise. He goes into the seller's regime, praising her taste with enthusiasm. Having guessed that she is a nobleman undercover, he decides to reject the formalities and offer a special agreement. She jokingly winks, they say, forgot her wallet at home so she will not be able to pay a lot. After her compliment, Gale is delighted and agrees to any amount, remembering that he has no regular buyers. Smiling, the girl agrees to buy and puts a fee directly in his palm. Gale's jaw almost falls. A huge gold coin is in front of him. Having cheerfully waving farewell, she goes with a new decoration, and the stunned Gale screams her after. When she disappears, he unwittingly shudders, remembering the strange words of the captain, but thinks more about her smile. Panic covers him. He forgot to explain the curse and did not give a charm to remove the magic. Falling on his knees, he grabs his head. A mysterious girl has already disappeared. He could not find her. After calming down, he recalls that it was only a memorial ring with a small curse. Its effect is simple. It is impossible to remove, but 3 times increases protection and gives immunity to deadly attacks. He thinks that the rich girl will easily remove the curse in the temple, but still wants to find her and pass it on. Meanwhile, the girl calmly passes a dark lane, not responding to the ghostly hands that stretches from the shadows. Suddenly, the brick wall opens, and it tightens it inside. The exclamation of surprise breaks from its mouth. It is attached to the wall. It maliciously demands to free itself and wants to know who grabbed it. She has a strict maid and informs her invisible lady that the girl is caught. The princess resists, but the guards drag it further, and the maid orders to hurry. In the gorgeous room, the maid reads a lecture for a tired girl, reminding her of the title and a mess. Now in a sophisticated dress, surrounded by servants, a girl appears like a princess punishment. Despite all his officiality, she barely restrained the mischievous laughter. The cheeks were hung like a baby. Meanwhile, Gale goes street when someone suddenly puts his hand on his shoulder, stopping him. This is a city guard. He says that they are looking for a young merchant who is fully coinciding with Gale's description. Fasting, Gale activates the artifact, turning into an old one, and guard immediately apologizes and goes. When the threat passes, it cancels the spell in panic. Why does the capital's army hunt for him? Overflowing, it settles near the wall, decides to leave the city immediately. But his despair is interrupted by a crowd of children who have witnessed tricks and now demand another focus. At that time, the maid quarreled the princess, calling the ring with a curse blasphemy. But the punishment is not at all lost. She insists that the market hike was her royal duty, which brings to despair. The whole room of this princess turned into an exhibition of strange things Gale. Its taste is undoubtedly eccentric. Anicaps with Vivian, which cannot evaluate the aesthetics of her new spooky jewelry. Vivian only sighs, reminding the princess of an important meeting with foreign ambassadors, which is very soon. When it is time to get ready for the meeting, the princess gets a damn ring, and Vivian immediately pays attention to him. Vivian in a panic pleads not to wear a strange decoration for an official reception, but the ring is already shining on his finger. As soon as the ring closes, a dark aura appears around, a sign that the curse has been activated. Meanwhile, Gale, not suspecting royal chaos, is gladly coming up for lunch. It tastes a simple dinner, enjoying every piece of well-deserved rest. Sitting on the second floor of the guild, he thinks, maybe independent work and really calling it. Having examined the renovated fork, he realizes that earning on scrap will not work. Quality materials are needed. After eating, he decides to take a few tasks to raise money and go to a new city. Returning the tray, he hears loud exclamations from the main hall and stops. Below, the rage is raging. A flock of sheep requires funding from the guild, appealing to its S-wrong. The guild secretary smiles. She is ready to safely destroy their arrogant arguments. She coldly explains that there will be no money without the quests, and mentions the client's complaint about their behavior. One of them tries to knock everything on the monster, but the girl reminds they were won by the usual ogre, much weaker than them. Smiling, she adds that the guild knows that they themselves brought the plow to the city without even noticing it. In conclusion, she turns the account which guild had to pay after the release of the sea. Gale from the shadows watches the defeat. The former team looks pathetic. The secretary rats the accounting journal against the table, casting a view that makes them cool. Paladin explodes, accusing Gale of all their failures, which causes the artisan to surprise. Melissa complains that due to the curse of Gale, their characteristics have become in vain, and the strengthening, powerless. The secretary sighs. It is enough, especially when the party begins to despise the Moor. It explodes in response. The Moor is in the top 5 of the best support outs of the capital. The wolf pack is shocked when he learned that they were sent a real treasure, thinking that they were a worthy team. Gale is surprised to know how strong the Moor was, and that she has officially left them. The secretary continues a verbal attack, not understanding how they can blame the master with such a rare gift. She even blushes, remembering how valuable his talismans are cleaning, and that he is a real talent. Finally, she coldly advises the leader first to repay the debts, and then ask for new investments. He screams the team to find at least some simple task, but party members require first to remove the Gale's curse. Humiliated and annoyed, they run out of the guild, quarrel with each other. Gale hears everything and does not understand what the curse is about. He has long removed all that he had once imposed. He decides to flee until the evil parties attacked him, but at that moment the city guards will swallow him. The guards talk about another fierce quarrel between the princess and Vivian, noting that their conflicts are a real storm. Gale was stunned, learning that the entire army of the capital was mobilized only to parse the royal quarrel. Going the street, it suddenly illuminates the idea. He straightens and resolutely corrects the collar. His gaze stops at the studio nearby, and he decides to go once he has been nearby. The bell will be dated when he comes in, and on the table notices a tedious sword, the same who once broke his leader. In the castle, Princess Kara screams hysterically, and Vivian and the guards are trying to quench it. Suddenly, Vivian is horrified. She realizes that the new ring of the princess has a terrible curse. It all started from the moment as the punishment worked the decoration. Magic worked and turned the castle into a panic cell. The older maid begs to remove the ring, but the princess is shyly admitted that he is stuck. Due to the approach of the meeting, Vivian offers a radical solution, to use the sword, which scares the princess to hysterics. Her frightened cries are spreading the castle, and the guards are ordered to protect the princess at any cost. But in a moment the punishment appears in the hall. A calm, confident, fully assembled in the face of the imperial ambassadors. She wraps the ring with a ribbon and explains with laughter that it is a minor injury, so as not to cause suspicion. With a light smile, she offers tea guests, and Vivian watches nervously from the side. The ambassador politely accepts the invitation, instead gives a chest with alleged delicacies from their empire. The princess's eyes shine from admiration when she sees a huge chest full of sweets. However, inside is not a treat, but a detachment of killers who jump out with weapons in their hands. Their leader is aimed at a poisoned crossbow, promising an ambulance, while the guard rushes to battle. The bolt flies at a terrible speed simply in the princess. No one has time to intervene. The princess only has time to shudder, but the arrow stops suddenly. The invisible shield takes it under protection. The killers are in amazement. The princess is whole, as if protected by an unknown force. The second wave of attacks is the same fiasco. The arrows fall on the floor, angry the leader. A dark barrier flashes around the princess. The protective magic of the cursed ring has shown itself fully. Kara immediately remembers a smiling crafter who sold her a ring, realizing that he had saved her. Without a second, angry Vivian orders the guards to grab nude attackers. Vivian checks the state of the princess, and also calm as the murderers are drawn from the hall. At this time, Gale, together with Guildmistra, urgently call the Star Hall of the castle. Both do not understand what is happening. The princess asks the bishop and the evaluator to check the ring with a curse that is still wearing. Bishop Uriel confirms that the removal is simple, but affected by the level of craft. Vivian launches a long explanation for the complexity of the spell, which completely confuses the princess. The bishop interrupts Vivian and gives the word to the royal assessor of Arasil to express his professional opinion. Arasil carefully studies the ring and reports that he 3 times increases protection and gives immunity to instant death. Princess and Vivian are amazed, requiring explanation how a rare and dangerous thing is. The appraiser solemnly states that this ring has the power of the sacred cursed relic. In delight, Arasil begins to talk about the artifact enthusiastically, but receives a strict warning from alert Vivian. It confirms protection against instant death, the ability that previously belonged only to the legendary church artifact. The bishop notes that such a force exists in only one another, but never created anything compact. It turns out that the only similar artifact is the Devil's Heart, the greatest treasure of the Empire. This legendary relic is endowed with frantic bonuses, from increasing the characteristics to accelerate. However, her curse is deadly. She slowly sucks her life from the one who wears it. Vivian recognizes coldly that great power always has its price. The balance between the victim and power is the unchanging law of their world. But the princess notices that her ring has almost no side effects, which makes it more valuable than the holy relic. She asks Vivian whether she remembers Crafter's appearance, forcing the maid to be surprised to get. Vivian immediately decides that the princess wants to punish the boy, but the punishment specifies she wants to thank personally. The princess confidently states that he was damaged or not, but it was this ring that saved her life. She must find his creator. Meanwhile, the carefree Gale walks through the city, knowing nothing about the royal wanted. He proudly demonstrates a new equipment, a costume of an adventure seeker with hidden pockets and strong boots. With his new equipment and his own dagger, he decides to leave the capital and look for supplies on the road. Before leaving, he stops to look at the fussy city for the last time and breathe in the fresh morning air. The wave of nostalgia covers. He confesses to himself that farewell to the capital is not as easy as he thought. His thoughts interrupt the dumbbell from the lane. There he notices a familiar trembling group. In front of him, former members of the wolf pack, who now freeze and quarrel in the middle of the street, establishing their petty controversy. Gale smiles, and for a moment she fails. But he quickly waves, laughing. It cannot be that this pathetic flock was once his S-level team. He goes to the market and buys something for breakfast, mixing with the morning crowd. Suddenly, a detachment of the guard flies in front of him. The soldiers scream orders and block the street. His heart is cold when he sees that the entire Royal Night Guard is on the streets, an unprecedented demonstration of strength. He grabs his head, seeing the search with a description of a guy with black hair who sold pointless little things. Near Gale hears the guards coordinate the searches. The whole army of the capital is in full combat readiness. Not aware of the situations, Gale disregards the poster, offended by the hint that his products look like a taste. One of the knights passes by, mutilating something about a blurred description, quickly running around Gale's figure. The knight's vigilant look lingers on him. He suspiciously comments on the boy's age, and Gale is boiling inside his armor inside. The woman walking next to the knight waves her hand. They say, the real craft who is looking for would be much less neat. Having come, Gale bites himself for nostalgia and escapes sharply, finally deciding to leave the capital. Hardly slipping from the royal guards, he hurries to the main gate, full of determination to start a new life. He examines the divisions that they are about to go, weighing which city to go to open a new shop. Studying the map, he reflects on 3 variants: a trading knot, a military fort, or an ancient city. But his strategic planning breaks the cry of the driver. Last place, discount. What instantly puts attention. The destination is the Famdes, an agricultural town, which first causes the craft only skeptical grimace. But the thought of fresh food and first-class ingredients awakens appetite. Its expression changes instantly. The stomach obtained, he impatiently raises his hand, trying to snatch the last free place. But at the same time, another figure in the hood is also drawn on the ticket. Two are involuntarily faced. The mysterious figure rotates slightly, and Gale feels a strange dejaja, as if they were already meeting. The girl removes the hood, and it turns out is a Moor, a magician that once replaced him in a wolf pack. The embarrassed Gale is in the words, while Moor teases him with a smile, asking that he remembers it. Finding himself in a close deputy, he decides to put up with her presence, although he boils in his soul. On the way, yawning on full lungs, it cannot be comfortable in a limited space. He glances at the sea with a side look, annoying because she sits close to him. Moore apologizes for the tightness, but Gale is still red with annoyed stiffness. He views other passengers, remembering how quickly this decisive magnet left his old team. Not able to fall asleep, he tries to get rid of her questions, saying that he is not angry. But after the pause, he confesses to himself. The Moor is not guilty. The guilt lies on the leader who was in love with her. In the end, he decides to move to the essence and directly asks why she actually left the team. She answers a counter question. How did he end up so much time with that horrible pack? Gale listens in a stunning way until Moore spreads the wolf flock completely, wondering that she was then forced to join. She confesses that she escapes from the capital to avoid the attention of the guild, and also confirms person paladin, what Gale doubted. Moore adds that although the pack made him a kappa gave, she immediately saw he is the only adequate team. He apologizes for the actions of his former comrades, and Moora is embarrassed not to contact her no longer. A quiet mutual understanding takes place between them, and they continue the journey into the unknown, leaving the capital behind. Gale notes that Moora is traveling with a minimum of things, and understands. She left the capital in a hurry immediately after leaving the party. To diversify the trip, he skillfully prepares a snack from what he has at hand, using his culinary skills. With a smile, she extends her fresh sandwich, joked in the club of those who were betrayed by wolves. She hesitantly takes food, but her face is soft, and she sincerely thanks him for his care. While the Moor tastes, Gale shares food with other passengers, causing general surprise. Moore is amazed not only with taste, but also how quickly he was able to cook everything on the road. He offers her a bottle of expensive wine, and she takes her with a smile, suspiciously asking his intentions. Opening the wine, it lifts the topic of his counter, which caused a lot of rumors. He remembers the news of the merchant who sells artifacts. Gale fades with a guilty look. The situation is exacerbated. Moora says that the princess is personally looking for this master, causing panic to Gale. The memory of the client who paid generously clarifies everything. It was the princess herself. He tries to charm, asking if he looks like artifacts, but the Moor is not conducted. Justifying himself, he draws the image of the crafts as wild hermit in the mountains, forcing it to laugh. She knocks, jokes in tone, and Gale only sighs, depicting a dramatic defeat. They fight the palm, jokingly but sincerely, and a new friendship begins to form between them. Moore sighs. If one of them was a frontliner, they could create a real team, but both only support. Suddenly the cart is tingling, and they throw them aside. Something hit it from the outside, and everything starts to shake. The frightened Gale looks out the window and sees the horde of orcs that attack the caravan. From a sharp blow, he falls embarrassed on the sea, and she pushes it back, reminding of the threat. Moore jumps out of this cart and confirms that their caravan is completely attacked by angry monsters. The curl of the neighboring cart in despair calls for help, reporting that the mercenaries are already dead, and immediately dies. Everything turns into chaos. Passengers scream and lose control, certain that they end. Moore is frowning. A group of orcs is separated and rapidly approaching their cart. Seeing that the rest is paralyzed with fear, she understands that only Gale is able to resist. Returning to him with a decisive look, Moore asks if he has at least some weapons. She confirms that she has a staff and a dagger. This will be enough because there is nowhere to retreat. Gale adds that she has a short sword and several talismans with debuff. Not a persuasive arsenal. Panic takes the mountain. How should the Sayports survive in such a trap? He almost breaks, but more confidently states that it is better to fight than to wait for death in action. She believes in her own strength. Inspired by her courage, Gale agrees to take on the forefront, asking the sea to support him from his back. Moore apologizes for drawing him into this mess, but Gale insists he will not allow her to fight alone. Standing side by side at the edge of the cart, he smiles. It is time to show Orc, which is capable of 2 former S wounds. Quickly shapes the plan, to use the effect of surprise so that at least one monster falls into the first blow. But before he has time, Moore creates a powerful protective barrier, stopping the attackers for half a step. The barrier holds, and she calls Gale to go forward as she prepares the reinforcement. It is striking her instant response. Suddenly, Moore feels strange energy. Gale pulls a dark, spooky dagger. Her eyes are horror. Weapons are throbbing an alarming ink aura, as if she were living her own life. Black energy explodes around Gale, and it solidifies, ready for battle. Its cloak flies in a whirlwind of shadows that wrap the body, creating a demonic aura. He calmly explains he will curse to clamp orcs, and the Moor will hit at a vulnerable moment. Its task is to finish enemies while they are paralyzed, and Gale clears the way. Moor agrees, hoping that the noise of the battle will attract the attention of the patrol until it is too late. He recognizes with a strict look. They will survive only if luck is on their side. She asks for his strange dagger with fear, but he just waves her hand and asks to prepare. Moor quickly reads the gain spell warning. The effect is extraordinary, but very short-lived. Magic energy beats from the ground. Its hair flies in the streams of force that wraps everything around. Gale guns one of the damned scrolls directly into the center of the enemy flock. The scroll flies exactly to the target, landing among the orcs that are not suspected. Gale is smiling happy. The scroll unfolds and his runes begin to glow with dark power. It is rapidly moving forward, shortening the distance until the Moor is ready to support it from the rear. The orcs are in fear. Their faces distort the horror when the curse begins to act. The explosion of dark energy and spooky skulls covers the battlefield, paralyzing enemies. Even Moor is amazed. Her eyes are widely open from the strength that Gale has shown. She barely resisted the energy backstroke, watching the orcs fall under the pressure of the curse. Realizing that the effect does not affect them, Mora sees Gale immediately rushes to produce paralyzed enemies. She anxiously monitors him. He moves at a superhuman speed, declaring that he takes the orcs. Even before the activation of her Bafu, he jumps into battle. His eyes are burning with determination and fighting excitement. The stunned Moor fades. She sees such a reckless jerk for the first time. One perfect movement, Gale is cut in half. The monster falls before he has time to react. It turns out, instantly striking another. Moor rushes after him, without taking his eyes out of his deadly dance. Gale turns with a victorious smile, praising her strengthening, but Moor is red and denies. All power belongs only to him. Her gaze slides on the field of battle, and she understands. The curse with the scroll was not just distracted by enemies, but at times stronger. A whirlwind of thoughts takes off in her head. She identifies a few powerful curse at once: horror, paralysis, and a decrease in protection. The gaze falls on his dagger. She realizes that this sinister weapon is a source of his terrifying power. Moor only beats the palm of the forehead. This guy waves with legendary weapons and charm like cheap iron. Under it, a magical circle suddenly reveals, and its buff raises all its characteristics to an incredible level. He thanks her with delight, not hiding emotions, and Moor is confused in words, trying to correct something. Feeling the invincible, Gale rushes into battle, and Mora asks herself in a stunning himself whether his strengthening was needed at all. But buff disappears instantly. She remembers that she forgot to charge the spell correctly. Gale is just laughing, not upset at all. With such an ally, they are simply invulnerable. Again, he rushes into the battle, turning into a blurry shadow. His purpose, the last orc. But the triumph breaks off. A new group, gigantic monsters with the heads of the boost, emerges from the darkness. All confidence disappears. One roar of a new flock instantly changes the course of the battle. Without wasting time, Gale thrabs another damn talisman. It explodes with dark energy among enemies. The curse instantly takes the mountain, sowing chaos. Monsters attack each other, covered by the eclipse. It easily cuts disoriented monsters, attributing its strength to Mooric reinforcement. But she explains with a serious facial expression. His curse is 10 times stronger than standard Debay. Her eyes expand. What he holds in his hands is an artifact level with which they do not joke. An even larger beast comes out of the forest. The leader of the orcs challenges Gale. Without any delay, he rushes forward and the dark dagger at the giant. The stroke intercepts the Moor, holding his best insane counterattack. The monster is scattered into a cloud of ghostly skulls, proof of a deadly curse. Moor is silent. It has just witnessed the super-ranging effect of instant death. Even Gale himself is confused. He does not understand how powerful the objects he created on his own. In silence after the battle, they understand. They manage to survive in the impossible situation, and a new connection is born between them. The embarrassed but happy Gale celebrates victory. And Moor, still with distrust, recognizes that they have survived. He is delighted. He grabs her hand and twists in the victorious rotation. Thanks for his magical support. Fun-waving passengers who carefully leave the hiding place in the cart. Thankful travelers surround their rescuers, scattering them with the words of gratitude for the salvation of the caravan. Later that night, under the starry sky, Moor decides to talk to a new friend about something important. Moor confesses that she was afraid during the battle. It was her first true battle with monsters. She is surprised how he could be in the S-Rang detachment without participating in battles, because he was one of the founders. Gale explains that he only created a curse and never fought direction, which finally stunned it. She calls their former leader a fool who has released him, and the confused Gale only agrees. Tasting his coffee, Moore jokes that his tricks are more like omnipotence. It makes Gale shine from pride. But the girl waits out of praise, they say. In a real battle, she is not so useful. Thank you for coffee. Moore goes to bed, and Gale offers her backpack instead of a pillow. Other passengers are already quietly communicating around, glad that they have survived after the horror. The smile does not come from Gale's face. Her words of his strength continue to be heard in his head. He thinks that she called his abilities almighty. The thought that leaves the trace. However, when mentioning the battle, he understands. Without the support of Moore, he would not win. By pulling a coffee, Gale realizes that it has much more potential in it than he thought. Pictures of a fierce battle are contrasted with memory with warm passenger celebrations. Thankful travelers bow to them. Thanks for the salvation of their lives. Among the praise of Moore, she acknowledges that she even liked the battle, and it makes Gale's smiles even wider. He laughs smugly, enjoying the consequences of his triumph. Reflecting on the events of the night, it turns red. The mention of the kindness of Moore warms the soul. There is a calmly sleeping Moora, using his backpack like a pillow. In the morning, the driver reports that their destination is already nearby, and the cart finally stops. Moore wakes up the first and lightly pushes the sleepy Gale to report. They arrived. Both get out of the cart quickly, and Moore confirms this town is called Farming. Full of excitement, they rush to the city gates, ready for a new stage of adventure. They are waiting for a simple but picturesque town, built on the hills and surrounded by fertile lands. The look opens wide pastures and surprised cows. Everything indicates the agricultural specialization of the town. Standing on the balcony, they look into the distance of the fields and think whether they made the right choice. Moore asks his plans, and Gale replies, he will first sell parts of the orcs, and then take up new tasks. They go to the guild, and Moore decides to find a new team as Gale wants to work solo. She looks concerned as they come to the guild. She is clearly excited by his idea of an independent mission. Inside, she sees which task he chose, and with anxiety says that he is not able to do so alone. An annoyed doubt, Gale raises a quest sheet and says with a call, if so worried, let it join. Moore is amazed when it throws a sheet on the table. It is a risky quest of rank A, from which the heart begins to beat faster. Gale is doubted whether two supports can work together, but Moore confidently states that it is her specialization. The cheerful dark-skinned Elfian appears from nowhere, gladly welcoming them in the guild. Both shudder at the surprise, almost without a greener. Walking behind her, Gale is amazed as he did not notice her, and in the meantime she looks carefully at him. When asked, Gale is eager to answer that they are newcomers from the capital who came to try their luck in the new city. The Elfian happily reports that there are almost no adventurers in this quiet town, so it is a great opportunity for them. Gale's charm works. The girl is red, and Moore will already drill his eyes with annoyance. When asked if they are a couple, Moore immediately denies, trying to hide emotions. Having restored restraint, she is officially represented by a Sayport master from the capital and offers her services. The eyes of the elves shine. In the city there is sharply lacking support, and it sincerely rejoices the appearance of Moore. But when it comes to Gale and his profession crafter curses, the girl's enthusiasm fades. Gale is shyly adding that she can fight a little, but the girl no longer looks interested. She acknowledges that the orders for curse masters rarely happen, and Gale's prospects do not look too rainbow. Moore sighs heavily, disappointed with a clumsy situation, and Gale only looks at her. She is surprised that he chose a hunting, a complex mission that has long remained unfulfilled. The task is without moving, because there are no strong enough clerks in the city, capable of passing through dangerous catacombs. Siegening, she asks directly whether the usual curse wizard will return from this quest alive. Gale with a smile waits from her doubt, and Moore glazily looks at the Elfian for her inappropriate words. But he warns, if he gets into trouble, no one will come. Despite the reservation, Gale confidently states that she will leave tomorrow, so she begins to look for something under the table. She tries to sell him a bunch of equipment, but he calmly asks only a map, and she puts a seal on a quest. Hearing that the proof of completion of the mission will be the Jaw Lich, Gale calmly says that he has many applications for them. The guild comes closer, begging him to be careful, but accidentally comes to his leg. She finally seems to be Gimli's name, and she is not just a registrar, but Guildmaster of Farming. Gale formally completes a conversation with Guildmistrum, and then it removes a huge bag that rises the monster parts. In Gimli, his eyes climb on the forehead from such an achievement. Going from the guild, Moore will tease him for carelessness about dangerous tasks in the new city. She approaches closer, and reproachfully that he is easily bribed by Gilder's attention, but he fails that he does not understand anything. Siegening, she admits that he goes with him, and Gale guesses unmistakably that she was what she conceived from the beginning. The mooring Mora assures that she was not worried at all, just came to save him from her own recklessness. Gale recognizes a calm voice that her presence is really reassuring, because he is in fact scary through the first solo quest. Moore hides his face and he smiles, wonder why she is not afraid of hunting for a runny nose. For him, all these creatures are just walking bags with valuable ingredients for craft. With the onset of this night, the town of Farming is immersed in silence, not suspecting the beginning of the A-level of the mission. Meanwhile, Guildmaster is sitting alone on the roof, looking thoughtfully at the starry sky. She remembers Gale and understands. He is not a simple cursed master as he seemed at first. The next morning, their appearance attracts the views of the locals. Such an armed duet is rarely seen here. To relieve tension, Gale jokes while they approach the old building where their test will begin. It will tease the sea for excessive preparation, and it silently shows a bag stuffed with all possible means against the undead. His casual self-confidence only exacerbates the alarm of Moore, though he calls himself a specialist in the undead. She forces him to promise that in the event of danger they will retreat immediately, and he agrees without hesitation. At the end of the stone corridor, a bright passage leads to the main hall of the dungeon. The passage opens in the ruins of the amphitheater. Gale is amazed, and the Moor, on the contrary, is strenuously looking into the darkness. On the descent, they find the crushed remains of one of the previous searches. This confirms the seriousness of the threat. Moore, in a panic, watches Gale carelessly copied in the bones, pointing to fresh traces in dust. In a trembling voice, she expresses fears about the age of the cellar and is afraid that they will be punished for their disdain for the dead. He capses from her piety, and she replies that even the slightest respect looks holy next to his attitude. Suddenly, he points to the skull, explaining that it is a sleeping runny nose that will come to life after sunset. To confirm your words, takes the skull and clicks the jaw, which brings the sea to a silent shock. Notwithstanding, she crushes the skull with a heather, which is very scared of even Gale himself. He jokingly reminds her of respect for the dead, but she with disgust states that it is still a monster for her. Gale points to the destroyed tomb, trying to reassure it. They say, at the upper levels only a weak runny nose. But immediately she states that he will go, because more valuable materials can be deeper, and she proposes to return. Stretching her lantern, he cheerfully disappears in the dark, looking for new resources while she is protesting. Moore grunts under the nose that all the former members of the wolf pack are equally self-confident and stubborn. After all, she only hesitates a moment, and then he sounds after him, deciding not to leave him. Together, they deepen, passing by dozens of open homes scattered on the floor. The intense atmosphere takes the mountain, and Moore suddenly zooms from fear, crashing into a confused Gale. She grabs him by the hand, insisting that something living has just touched her. But he just laughs, waving her fears. Gale tries to reassure a trembling magician who hides his face in his shoulder, is still stunned by fear. While she clung to his cloak, he notices how a bat is flying over her head, the culprit of panic. Morea has been repelling him, justifying that it was revenge, and he shows her innocent bat. In order to show it's a little more, it takes the skull and causes the jaw to click, which causes it again. The fright took the mountain. She jumps in his arms, shocking Gale with an unexpected reaction. Meanwhile, a horde of skeletons approaches the roar, and he tries to calm Moore, who clung to him a dead grip. She screams in tears that she is not able to calm down. Her inner equilibrium is completely destroyed. In a panic, she sharply repels Gale, leaving him suddenly. He swayed back and she screams to keep away. Fear mixed with fury. In the despair of Moore throws a lantern and a handful of means against the undead directly into the crowd of skeletons. The enemy bodies flash, but it does not stop their offensive, and it pushes the lost Gale again. Once among the charred remains, the sweaty Gale asks the already repeated C whether she finally calmed down. Then he asks why she went with him at all, if she hates the runny nose. With a serious facial expression, she recognizes. Such tasks are too dangerous to take up alone. The moved Gale smiles and thanks her for the care, though he assures that he would have coped. He proposes to hold his hand so as not to get lost in the dark, and this causes a wave of embarrassment. Both begin to blush and look away, as if they have not heard their own words. Without a word, she still takes his hand, firmly wearing her fingers with him. During his movement, she squeezes his palm for soothing, and he is in surprise that he just joked. The story is transferred to the capital, to the forge, where the shovel is working on hot metal. His workshop is approached by a desperable wolf play, trying to sell old equipment. But the blacksmith, only looking at the miserable company, slammed the door, refusing to deal with them. Now the homeless and trembling of the cold, the former Eswell warriors are sitting in a dark lane, regretting themselves. One of them pulls out a few quest fillers, their only chance to make a little money. Among the tasks from hunting for goblins to dangerous A-wound extermination of Bake, which does not give them enthusiasm. Their leader explodes from rage. Pride does not allow him to take such humiliating missions. The wizard from the group tries to reassure everyone, urging to stop quarrels and think soberly. With creaking, they adopted reality. They admit that they cannot cope with difficult tasks in the current state. Looking at the flyers, the leader sees the most advantageous task is the dangerous A-rang on the bug. Only the idea of a clash with the powerful Ogrims causes a noticeable wave of fear in a demoralized team. The leader boldly rejects the task, asking confidence and complaining about the lack of missions of level S. Deciding to stay at the quest level C, they choose orcs. Easier tasks are almost paid. The warrior states that hunting for skeletons for them is humiliating, and the leader laughs at a low level of complexity. One of the participants sighs desperately. Does not believe that they have reached hunger strike on the street. The other tries to encourage the team, they say. The skeletons are weak. It is worth doing what they can do. The magicians discuss the plan. They are sure that the advanced will settle everything, and they will earn for dinner. In the background, less brave members of the group laugh ominously, though nervously. They only agree to take care of themselves. Let others be better affected. The party arrives in the old abandoned church, the place of their task of level C. The scout looks through the destroyed wall and confirms that they are waiting for a pack of undead. It has about 20 skeletons, but the leader and the warrior are waving. It is little things for them. Paladin teaches the plan. He and the warrior go to the frontal attack. Others cover. He jumps into the cemetery and causes a sacred light that dazzles and paralyzes the skeletons. At the signal of the female warrior breaks forward. Her double blades are swollen with a deadly storm. The rest is tightened. Someone crumbles the bones. The magician fires the runny nose with fire. Paladin is already celebrating victory, imagining the perfect battle and triumph. He orders support to stay behind. The magician reluctantly agrees with the plan. 2 advanced warriors stand in front of the gate of the cemetery, ready to start the assault. The gate creaks, and the protective barrier above the ground disappears. The hunt began. Inside, the skeletons begin to move. The earth trembles from the noise of the rising bones. The warriors rush forward, mocking the undead, which is helpless in light of the day. Paladin, maniac, collapses the sword on the first enemy. They rotate in a deadly whirlwind, scattering bones in a lightning rhythm. But the attack suddenly stops. Both are unarmed and stunned among enemies. The skeletons begin to beat them mercilessly with their own bones, not letting them be. The wizard, in a panic, prepares a spell of fire while others shout that the front is about to die. It launches Inferno, but only a fee. A pathetic flame appears. The whole team watches with horror as a fireball fades without even flying to the enemies. Their attempt only angry skeletons, which are now ominously returning to magicians and support. In panic, everyone throws tasks and comrades, fleeing from the cemetery, losing hope. The next day, the disgraced team tries to track the orcs. The woman warrior is the first to fight. Paladin supports her, pierces the sword of the monster, and screams the images, hiding her own fear. But the moment of this triumph breaks off. The sword gets stuck in the flesh, and it remains defenseless until the team shouts to him about danger. The orc strikes, easily grabs the warrior and presses it until it bursts in a panic. Instead of help, the rest of the wolf flock mockingly mocking it, watching the situation on the side. Paladin tries to hit the rear, but the captive warrior only sighs neglect from a vain attempt. The blade ringing the stiff skin of the monster. The attack is completely ineffective. He is embarrassed when the angry orc completely switches attention to him. One powerful blow throws the entire team sideways, another shameful failure even at D level. It takes a few days and the scene is transferred back to the Adventurers Guild in the capital. The depressed members of the wolf pack go into the hall. Their faces are full of despair and shame. Hearing the whisper, the leader immediately accuses Gale of all the team failures. 2 members secretly plan to find Gale, considering it the key to solving all the problems. The warrior proposes to take a quest on the goblins, doubting whether they will pull it. Their clogged, exhausted faces are eloquently testifying a series of painful defeats. Support looks finally broken. On their faces, fatigue and bitter frustration. The receptorist of this guild laughs at the next defeat, and the leader falls on his knees. Paladin boils from rage, justifying the failure of circumstances instead of recognizing his own weakness. In the memory, the peasants meet the team warmly, considering them S-level rescuers. The wolf flock self confidently promises a rapid victory over the goblins, swaying the experience. But the reality is cruel. The village instantly covers chaos, and the characters fall under the feet of the crowd. The exhausted team only watches. They were beaten so much that they cannot even rise. The receptionist conveys a clear message from the peasants. The fee will not be for cowardice. The angry leader grabs her, demanding finally the task they can. She calmly rejects him with one wave of his hand. He flies to the floor, and this is the 4th shame in a row. Meanwhile, in the crypt, Gale inspects a huge destroyed amphitheater, affected by its size. He smiles. The deeper they go, the more valuable materials for craft finds. The frightened sea clung to him, insisting that something scary nearby. Gale asks her to let her go, but she stubbornly states that she hears the danger around. And suddenly, a giant pile of bones, which consists in a new, horrible shape, breaks out of the ground. A giant skeleton with a threatening aura emerges from the wreckage. The empty sockets are closely stuck in them. Hiding behind him, the frightened sea asks if you can already open your eyes. Gale tries to reassure, says everything is well, though she really thinks that she is better not to see this monster. Without hesitation, he raises his hand and throws a powerful spell on magic, scattering on the giant dead. The monster instantly crumbles into the powder while the sea is shocked by its easy demonstration of force. Snoozing, Gale is quietly asking whether she still wants to open her eyes. The sea is surprised how he was able to use ordinary scattering against the undead. He replies that it was easy. She denies that the dispersal of the curse should not act on the dead, not understanding how he did. He tries to explain, comparing his ability to the magic of the saints who expel evil. The embarrassed sea asks why such a powerful technique is not used everywhere, and he tries to pick up words. Holding a fragile skull in his hand, he explains that it is not a classic exile of the undead. His strength is not in destruction, but in listening to the stories of dead souls that have not found rest. The giant's bones are slowly scattered on dust, the testimony of a strange but strong magic of Gale. The sea is shocked, and Gale smiles, squeezing the remains of the skull in his palm. When she requires explanation, he already searches the remains, asking her not to fuss while he collects the trophy. Mora thinks about the nature of the undead, and Gale is not seriously indicating the skeleton nearby as a classic example. Without any effort, he destroys Ghoul, noting that such creatures here happen at every step, shows a luminous magic seal, adding that the dead are not delighted with exile. It is obvious even to see. He shares the other point of view. Perhaps the runny nose is just souls with images that attack holy charms for no reason. Collecting fluid from Hums compares the situation with a child who is quarreling without even listening. The sea looks even more confused. His words suddenly affect the painful memory. She remembers her childhood desire to become an adventurer. In the memory, a young sea, which is strictly forbidden to dream, despite its indignation, that other girls go the same way. She is harshly stopped, ordered to leave these nonsense only because she is a girl. Returning to reality, she sighs indifferently, waving the concerned issue of Gale. He continues his monologue, explaining, "In order to calm the spirits, you just need to listen to their images." He immediately devalues her trauma, calling it an ordinary story. The sea is clearly annoyed. To prove his right, he approaches the nearest coffin, preparing to demonstrate his equipment. The lid breaks out from there. With a crack rises a spooky skeleton knight. The sea screams, recognizes the enemy, and jumps on Gale, knocking it down. She explains in a panic how dangerous this knight is, squeezing it so firmly that it is difficult for him to breathe. The sea does not let him go, so Gale just lifts her in his arms and goes to the knight, ignoring her panic screams. He calmly approaches the monster, touches his forehead, and imposes a simple scattering. The magical runes flash brightly, and the skeleton begins to crumble directly in the eyes. In a moment, the formidable Dark Knight completely disappears, leaving only the fading sparks of light. The transparent human spirit, the soul of the knight, is finally freed from the curse. "Thank you for the rescue." The ghost quietly disappears in the glow, finding peace. Gale smiles, trying to explain the method, and the confused sea shouts that he does not understand at all what has just happened. Grasping her head, she is shocked. He just easily destroyed the monster of rank B. He explains that the knight died with regret, never saying goodbye to the bride. When asked how he learned this, Gale answered, "The creation of a cursed gear has taught him to read the traces that leaves the runny nose." He adds that most spirits just want to listen to them. It already brings them peace. Gale notes that the master curses his method is perfect because it gives more valuable materials than holy purification. Its technique does not completely destroy the curse, but retains the remains, useful for creating artifacts. While they move deeper in the crypt, the sea looks at it a piercing, heavy look that leaves him in astonishment. Finally, she asks whether he considers the runny nose a simple prey. He says without hesitation that it is only material for him. The angry sea grabs him by the collar and demands an apology for such a disrespectful attitude. He is indifferent to further, noting that he clears the crypto, and therefore his method is profitable to all. While she holds her head from anger, he complains about her cry and again suggests to take her hand. Now holding hands, they descend even deeper into the darkness. Gale solemnly states that they are in place. They enter the giant hall with columns, the deepest part of the crypt filled with the army of the undead. Mora notes that, despite the depth underground, the room is surprisingly well lit. Before them is a terrible horde, skeletal knights, hums, and even dark phantoms. She explains that this glow comes from fused energy above 50 souls collected together. Mora tries to look brave, saying that everything is fine with her, but Gale sees her fear through. Absolutely immovable, he calmly evaluates the extent of the inanimate troops in front of them. While the Mora is panicking, Gale with boredom inspects a horde, disappointed with the absence of counts. The runny nose is suddenly stamped, and the sea with relief offers to retreat for today. Her hope is instantly destroyed when she understands. The dead give the way to someone much more. Seeing this, she grabs Gale and pulls for the column, begging for hiding. From the dark pass comes a terrible figure in a rock with a horned helmet. Its presence pierces the air with icy horror. Mora, with horror, recognizes a creature. It is a Lord of Crypt, much more dangerous for everything they had to meet. She understands that it is a necromantic class, a catastrophic class, capable of raising the army and destroying entire land. Instead, Gale's eyes were burning with delight. It was for the sake of such opponents that he came here. Mora Panic explains that only the bishops can cope with such a threat, but Gale's confidence remains unbreakable. When he begins to talk about his skills of crafter, the necroment breaks from height, collapsing with horrible power. At the time of impact, Gale pulls the frightened sea from the epicenter of the explosion. He covers her when the necroment and his army pay attention to them. The whole inanimate horde moves in synchronous forward, with an unrestrained avalanche, stepping away. The sea pleading asks him to retreat, but he prepares a mysterious artifact for battle. In an instant, when the necromanta raises his hand to attack, Gale also raises his own. It is time for his secret weapons. A thick knitting substance is pulled out of the artifact, covering the entire runny nose that has slid in their direction. The magical circle of huge scale covers the hall. The sea is shocked, recognizing in it the spell of the level of bishop. Already outside, Gale is drawn with pleasure until Mora, still shocked, swears again never to step into the crypto. She cannot believe how he turned a meeting with a catastrophic threat to a normal walk. When he neglects the scale of the battle, she is angry with whom they have just won. Asking whether he often examines crypts, Mora hears that the necromantian was probably once a noble person. Gale counts the prey with enthusiasm, anticipating which cursed artifacts will now be able to create. Mora skeptically notes that his passion for everything cursed simply goes crazy. He proudly demonstrates the trophy, the sword of the necromant and the amulet, calling them steep prey. In shock from her indifference to treasure, he is surprised how she does not like these masterpieces. She reminds of his former shop, asking how things were going there. He warmly remembers the client who was fond of his style, calling the equipment with a protective decor with a character. Mora confidently assures that ordinary people will never appreciate his strange aesthetics. Smiling, she reports that she has already received an invitation to a new group, and Gale swears to prove that she is wrong. In the guild, Mora impatiently sounds him, drawing up new party arrangements. At this time, a noisy adventurers group descends the stairs, and Gale is behind them. Mora recognizes them with a wolf flock, known for their skill and horrible character. The scene brings us to a memory where Mora agrees to the task from this group, deciding that the fee is worth it. Then he recalls the moment when the party leader was cold Gale. Both Gale and Mora remember that scene with heavy, depressed faces. Nowadays, Mora is thinking how Gale has changed. From a shy exile, he has become a person full of hope. She looks at him with a warm smile, recognizing that the adventures with him were surprisingly fun. He jokes about her fright in the crypt, forcing the sea to blush and deny that he was on the verge of tears. Smiling, Gale apologizes and sincerely thanks her for being there, forcing the girl to finally turn red. Looking at the city, he confesses that the journey would be much more lonely and difficult without it. Even with money or roof over your head, without a friend, everything would be empty. With a light smile, she adds that laughter in the company is able to change everything. He returns to the sea and confesses sincerely. It was because of her that he learned to enjoy life again. His words completely knock it down from the panther. She blushes and cannot say a word. Suddenly, she escapes, shouting something angry, though she whispered softly, "Thank you." Gale is surprised by her gaze, not realizing that she is going on in her head while she is in despair because of his naivety. Returning to the guild, they stand in front of a huge pile of gold, and the sea asks how they will share the reward. She refuses the part, insisting that she only interfered with him during the task. With a gloomy expression, he adds that the only thing she did was his equipment. When Gale raises the bag himself, he feels stunning how heavy it is. Even a high-level carrier would be difficult. Then he shows a damn bracelet that gave her superhuman power, telling her repeated charm. Mora, in shock. He created a combat artifact that is able to change the course of war, only to easier to pull his things. She asks whether he once saw a regular magical object, not understanding its complete detachment from reality. Gale confesses that he studied the market, but calls all the standard tools boring and unpromising. Mora is outraged that normal artifacts have only one small bonus rather than 10 assaults. She adds that his creation is the legendary relics, and only now Gale seems to be aware of this fact. While she is boiling with indignation, he only laughs, rejoicing that his funny designs turned out to be national treasures. With confidence, he states that innovation is the main, and allegedly, among other things, recalls that all his objects are damned. When he offers her to make such a toy, Mora instantly forbids such a dangerous trick. The plot reminds that damn artifacts are not a joke. They are tied to the owner and require extraordinary strength. She explains that such things always have a terrible price: weakness, loss of control, or something worse. Mora thinks who is able to cope with such dangerous things at all. And in the meantime, Gale works in the workshop. And here his secret opens. He does not remove the curse, but on the contrary, skillfully sew controlled defects. From the awareness of the scale of his strength, the cold runs on the back. Gale proudly praises his ideal inventions, and Mora admits that he can really change the world with his craft. But he quickly drives this opinion, sarcastically murmuring that he never become known. Looking at the damn bracelet, Mora understands that his gloomy style hides a real genius. Seeing the visa, she proposes to drive, but the loaded Gale already shows the direction of the new adventure. A friendly farmer recognizes him, in surprise, remembering that he was cursing. Mora does not restrain smiles. His weird nature really even likes. Departing, the girl confesses to herself that he does not mind going on a journey again. Returning to the guild, they are greeted by the Elfia Master Gimli. She is surprised that they returned so quickly, and asks if they surrendered in advance. But Gale denies boldly, pushing a bag of skeletons on the table. Then he gets an indisputable proof of victory: a helmet of a necromant catastrophic level. Guildmaster is amazed with trophies and specifies that the task was only a leech, but promises 30% of the bonus. Mora explodes by indignation, accusing the guild of false information that almost costs them. It severely spreads their incompetence, forcing Gimli to sweat under the pressure of words. The puzzled guild Mistranaya apologizes and offers 20% of the surcharge while Gale is watched. Mora teaches it. The lack of accurate data for the adventurer can turn into death. To discharge the atmosphere, Gale will tease the sea, they say. She is too good. She immediately denies. Guild Mistrin apologizes for her inexperience, but Gale reassures few people dare to go to crypts. She confesses that the guilty relied on inaccurate rumors from the burial ground. Gale is red. She looks surprisingly cute when upset. But the mood of Guild Misterine changes sharply. She proposes to patrol, and then with the arms thanks Gale. While Mora is trying to pull her away from the boy, Gale is surprised to realize that he has never received so much praise. Going, Mora asks sharply whether he likes the younger girl's appearance. He fades with shock. Guildmistern sounds from above, enthusiastically suggesting evaluating their trophies. Mora accuses Gale of excessive softness and that he looked closely at the Elfine. He deny. He asks why she is suddenly offended, and hears that the Elfian is probably older than hundreds of years. Suddenly, a huge pen falls right in front of them, shocking both of their size. Guildmistern apologizes from the stairs that she released from his hands, but Gale suspects that he was a deliberate shot. After some controversy over gold, they agree to divide the reward. The Mora is red, accepting the share. Walking on vacation, Guildstrin waves them, saying that Gale can pick up the rest later. Left alone, she examines the trophies and thinks about the random remark of the sea about her age. In the Guildmisterina's office, a figure in the cloak suddenly appears, forcing her to ask a report in surprise. The mysterious stranger begins a report from the events in the capital, and Guildmisterin listens closely to every word. A large figure in the cloak sits on the bed behind, filling the room with a heavy atmosphere of a silent threat. After the hurt of Guildstrin is more serious, she suspects that there was an attempt at murder. The informant reveals that the Princess Kara survived not thanks to the holy artifact, but thanks to the damn object. Guildmistrini is interested in an unknown artifact, and the spy suspects that the attackers were from the military. She smiles Krivo, assuming that the Imperial Shock Group is involved in this case. The informant completes the report by promoting more details later, as the case is related to its mission. The mysterious figure disappears, leaving only the rolling coin. Guildmaster rises from the table. She looks at the sorcerer's helmet, realizing that the attack on the princess is part of a large-scale Imperial game. Remembering the cursed object and the A-level quest Gale, it begins to associate the facts. In her memory, the first meeting appears. Even then, he hid a dangerous amount under the mantle. The victory over the sorcerer with only one support is further exacerbated by the aureole of mystery. Holding the report, she understands that she is dealing with an artisan, for whom death and dark magic are only toys. In her soul, she reveals her secret. She is a dark elf, a damn creature with a single mission. Before the eyes are her people, a damn race, chained to eternal service in the forgotten darkness. Its role, Gilder, is a cover to steal the artifact of the Empire and liberate their people. In the face of increasing political tension, She sees Gale's chance to use chaos in her favor. Her lips are stretched in a mysterious smile. She suspects that he created that sinister artifact. Leaning to the helmet, she whispered that Gale is a truly exciting man who was quite interested in her. The scene is transferred to a quiet church in the capital where another group is looking for answers. The priest with a closed face calmly informs the arrivals that they did not have a single curse. Former members of the wolf pack look at him stunningly, unable to believe heard. From the altar, the priest repeats his diagnosis. They are completely cleared of any evil. The angry paladin grabs him, demanding to take off the curse through which, as they believe, Gale stole their strength. He explains, they were really damn, but miraculously survived. And with the departure of Gale, the curse disappeared. They are broken. They wander into the lane, and the words of the priest are still ringing in their heads. They have to accept the terrible truth. The current weakness is their true level. Kush leader refuses to recognize this and accuses the priest of incompetence of anger. The team's magician is desperate, confessing that he had no idea how mediocre he really is. In despair, Kush is trying to unite the detachment. I am convinced that Gale is now a beggar, and it is easy to find. However, one of the team members no longer stands. He decides to escape and save himself. Those who remain of the poverty. Sold equipment to eat and pay the priest. The angry betrayal. The Kush grabs the rug and presses it with the force, tearing his anger on it. He laughs at a former friend, but he just sighs. The escape was the best solution. Rug breaks off the quarrel, pointing to the bulletin board next to them. Kush returns in surprise, trying to see what attracted the attention of the partner. He breaks the postcard and, smiling enthusiastically, carries it back to the team, leaving the tick with a break in his hands. Everyone is going around, and the Rujing sits down on the ground, smiling. The leader seems to be really capable of something. The warrior raises the leaf and, shining with joy, states, "Finally, they smiled luck. This is the search of the Empire. Gale is declared dangerous and should be caught alive or dead." The whole group explodes with a roar, catching from Gale's description. A horrible style and spooky artifacts. Their loud screams scare passers-by until they plan to track a former friend. Blinded with a thirst, they dream of wealth and glory that Gale will receive for the betrayal. They are confident that their past will provide a reward with him. They immediately go to the royal office. In the palace, Guard confirms the wolf pack. But Princess Kara suspects that these are ordinary fraudsters. Guard reports that they declare common adventures with Gale. It attracts the attention of the princess. Inside, the flock behaves shamefully, laughing, collapsing at the table right in front of the royal guards. They brazenly require more food and mourn out of the gorgeous interior, wiping boots against the carpet. Kush leader complains of expectations and even jokes that the palace should pay them for delay. The princess watches with the guards and whispers shares doubts about their S-class until the Kush does not notice. He roughly turns to the exquisite lady, causing shock and surprise to the audience. Her guards immediately warns, "It is possible to consult so only ordinary people, not to the royal person." Kara calmly reveals his titled person, forcing the arrogant adventurer to lose the gift of language. The whole pack, in a panic, falls on his knees, while the princess looks at them from the throne with a cold contempt. She ignores Kush's apology and moves on the table, moves to the essence of the conversation. With the look of the ice, she asks whether they really know the one they claim. Sugar wolves are smiling cunningly, assuring that they know Gale better than anyone. The Guardian orders to describe the damn artisan as possible without spending time. But Kush gives out a funny and blurred description, which causes instant indignation and sarcasm of the guard. The warrior adds a bright detail to Gale's description, a senseless jacket that unexpectedly attracts the princess's attention. Another member of the detachment picks up a mockery, mocking Gale's accessories. They say, "No taste or style." Princess Kara recalls the same subject that saved her life and coldly breaks their images. Her categorical denial makes the whole wolf pack died in full misunderstanding. Panic instantly covers the detachment. They are aware that they have just offended an artifact that the princess considers valuable. Trying to remedy the situation, Kush calls Gale's name and reveals that he was their cursed artisan. One of the members shows a few strange mascots, causing the princess's interested look. The guard confirms their authenticity, and the punishment insists on the details they learned. The detachment explains that Gale had his bench and gave out the mascot as a bonus to buy. The princess is insulting her lips. She did not reach her mascot. The guard tries to find a logical explanation. Under pressure, Rogue confesses that he actually stole the mascots from Gale's hiding place. While the detachment is thrown into the thief with reproaches, the princess looks with horror on the spooky things. But suddenly she grabs the cursed artifacts in her eyes, enjoying their dark energy. Recovering, the punishment acknowledges that in their words there is a proportion of truth, and the confused detachment begins to be buried. I am convinced that the princess orders the guards to issue a reward, and the members of the detachment glitterly shine with their eyes. The guard raises the question of her strange admiration, but the punishment is embarrassed by the explanation. It extends a heavy coin bag, calling it an advance for further cooperation. Leaning closer, she makes a deep look for the Kush to die. She needs to thank Gale in person. Stunned, the couch becomes around and solemnly sweeps to life that his S-Class team will not let down. Leaving the palace, the flock celebrates its happiness, rejoicing in royal support and money. We are sure that Gale knows after 3 years of joint adventures they distribute tasks and diverge. Some go to tavern and carriage stations, are convinced that it is still somewhere near the capital. While searching, Kush thinks of what actually referred to the princess, talking about gratitude. Others smiles ominously, thinking of their own gratitude visit for all suffering. The flock laughs, making bloody plans for revenge, not understanding the true intentions of the princess. The guard is suspicious whether it was worth trusting these brazen. Kara laughs, acknowledging that he has no hope for their success, especially after the failure of the empire itself. She decides to test their abilities, but orders protection not to look out of their eyes. Looking again on the poster, she confirms his name, Gale, the one who forges the curse, and looks at the ring. Her cheeks pink and her heart shrinks. She holds the poster and dreams of learning all about the mysterious savior. Meanwhile, in the city of Farmge Gale, he suddenly sneezes in his workshop, jokingly assuming that, apparently, a fan remembers him. He thinks for a moment, but immediately rejects thoughts and returns to business. With a manic smile, he polishes the edge only to enhance his dark strength and magical protection. It then grinds the bone of the dark skeleton, weighing the bonus to the attack against losses in protection. Combining a mixture with a thunderstorm nucleus, it creates a new masterpiece, a sword charm in memory of time in this city. Moira breaks into the room, complaining of noise and stench that arrives from the workshop. But Gale proudly demonstrates her last creation, a sinister, cursed two-sword called Fracture. Moira, looking out the window, asks whether he will open his Yama in the bazaar again, and with a smile he reports that this time he joins him. The unexpected decision forces Gale to look at her in surprise. In the market, his passionate call to buy fresh materials from the dead is a strikingly contrasting with neighboring sellers. He admires his spooky products in the crowd, which is clearly more interested in bread and fried turkey. 2 farmers politely but confidently refuse to buy accursed equipment. The same buyers are happy to accept treats from the meatball, fascinated by the aroma of its dishes. The unmoved Gale pulls a set of skeletal sticks for food, but this only adds discomfort in the eyes of passers-by.